Hello, beautiful people. Hopefully the audio is coming through all right. Let me know if there are any problems with it. I have a set of headphones here that I might have to put on if anybody decides to drop in on the stream. But yeah, do let me know whether or not the audio is working. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, one and all. This will be a live stream, a chill stream. A chance for you guys to ask questions and for me to attempt to respond. So, yeah, I do have a couple things I want to talk about, minor things, and a couple of minor announcements about upcoming stuff to mention. And as I said, it is possible that friends will drop in. Then again, they're also busy with their own things. D is even now doing a Twitter space of his own. But that is absolutely fine. Do check him out. Also, by the way, D just did an interesting stream with Red Hawk. So go to Red Hawk's channel. You can find it by searching under Red Hawk, all one word, REDHAWK. And it's a very recent stream this evening, I believe, and it's on hierarchy. And D does one of his rare non-academic agent appearances. So before we get started, the first thing I should say is come up with questions to ask. Start plugging them into the chat. Hopefully not stupid ones. Hopefully interesting, or at least entertaining ones. Yeah. So get on that now so that by the time I'm done doing my introductory blathering, I can turn to those. So please follow this channel, Semiagog, as well as A Safer Space. People don't know that there's a secondary channel on YouTube called A Safer Space that has lots of content from a period when I had a channel strike, and I was waiting for it to lapse completely. And you can find a lot of material there. Also, Semiagog as well as A Safer Space are available over on BitChute. And please definitely follow me over on Odyssey. It's always a good place to have as a backup if I get booted from YouTube. I am over on Odyssey. And then otherwise, I would say I'm on Gab, Twitter, and Telegram. And for those who support the channel, all of the credit and none of the blame. Thank you very, very much, ladies and gentlemen, for the ongoing support of the channel. I have one last sort of project that's probably going to take a week and a half, 2 weeks. And then I intend to return to this channel. I've been chilling. I've been relaxing after a pretty intense year of getting everything set up to move and going through all the hell of moving and then getting settled into my new place. But it is now coming together. And so, sorry, I just saw Settler's Lament in the comments. I certainly should mention world famous Settlers Laments channel. Settlers Laments, two possessives. It just definitely check him out as well if you want, if you're into auto dephase and stuff. He's definitely where you want to go. What was I talking about? Yeah, so after a year of taking it easy, I'm going to be returning to this channel in force, and I'm also going to finish my damn translation of this Circassian. I mean, the translation's finished. I'm going to finish putting it together, get that damn thing out, and get on my next book. So yeah, more to come, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, links. Also, there are my books. There's Vinculum, dystopian science fiction story set in Istanbul in the year 2076. A book thief named Alaric McBroom is pursued by remorseless corporate hitmen and an esoteric sect of assassins. That is Vinculum. You'll see links in the description below. You can pick this up over on Amazon. And there's my collection of poems. I realize that most people are not into poetry. This is Cinders from the Bloomery of Youth. This is available over on Amazon as well. Again, links in the description below. So that covers everything. Yeah, before we get started, come up with good questions. But I think I should start with a quick mystery from this 1930s book. I guess it's Party Games. It's called How Good a Detective Are You? 1934 by H.A. Ripley. Wonder if that name is real. How Good a Detective Are You? Minute Mysteries. So yeah, I'm going to hit you guys with one of these. I'm just going to pick one for the hell of it. Actually, I'm going to pick one that seems pretty basic. Did we do this one already? No, we already did this one. The clown dies. That's the Trayvon case. Ooh, let's do the Trayvon case. I have a suspicion that this has, having been written in 1934, this was... No, let's do the ex-wife murder. Let's do the ex-wife murder. And while we do that, I'm just going to pour myself a drink. Oh, and we can get into this properly. Trimatologia vong, tra la 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 la, Trimatologia vong, avone dave agin, Trimatologia vong. Ah, that tastes good. That will be good. That will make me happy. Okay, so let's start before we get to questions, ladies and gentlemen. And I also have, I have things to talk about too. If you guys just come up with garbage, I have a few things to discuss anyway. Okay, so here is the puzzle. Listen carefully. I'm only going to read this one time, you dogs. This is the ex-wife murder. Who shot her? Cried Rogers as he rushed into the hospital 3 minutes after his ex-wife died from a bullet through her head. Just a minute, Professor Fordney said. I'd like to ask you a few questions. Routine, you know. Although divorced for the past 6 months, you've been living in the same house with your ex-wife, have you not? That's right, was the reply. Had any trouble recently? Well, yesterday, when I told her I was going on a business trip, she threatened suicide. In fact, I grabbed a bottle of iodine from her as she was about to drink it. When I left last evening at 7, however, telling her I was spending the night with friends in Sewickley, she made no objection. Returning to town this afternoon, he continued, I called my home, and the maid answered. Just what did she say? Said Fordney. Oh, Mr. Rogers, they took poor mistress to St. Anne's Hospital about half an hour ago. Please hurry to her. She was crying, so I couldn't get anything else out of her. Then I hurried here. Where is she? I'm going to reread that because I got screwed up on what the quote was. Oh, Mr. Rogers, they took poor mistress to St. Anne's Hospital about half an hour ago. Please hurry to her. She was crying, so I couldn't get anything else out of her. Then I hurried here. Where is she? The nurse here will direct you, responded the professor. A queer case, this, Joe, said Inspector Kelly, who had been listening to the conversation. These moderns are a little too much for me. A man and woman living together after being divorced 6 months? A queer case indeed, Jim, sighed Fordney. You'd better detain Rogers. If he didn't shoot her himself, I'm confident he knows who did. Why did the professor advise the inspector to detain Rogers? Anyone? Nobody? Ugh. Come on, man. Nobody? Oh, you pussies. God damn, that tastes good. Nobody, really? Is this like dead? Look, Emmeline says, read it again. No! You have to listen. You must learn to listen. Oh, yeah. All right. Not everybody here is an idiot. All right. Solution to, this is what's cool. They have them on the back page. They say solution to the ex-wife murder, but it's upside down, so it's hard to read. So let's turn it upside down. Rogers could not have known that his ex-wife had been shot unless he had guilty knowledge of the crime. The maid did not say why she had been taken to the hospital. Yet Rogers's first words on entering it were, "Who shot her?" That's right. Lowell, Absolutely. Lol. Absolutely. Absolutely in charge. In charge of everything. Absolutely tearing it up. Congratulations. Congratulations. Okay. Noah Solomon in the house. Hello. Bunch of people I see in here. Faye Ale, guy from V, had many of the same toys I did in the 80s. Don't trust him. Yeah, Settler's Lament, world famous. All kinds of people up in here. Wild and crazy shit going on. Do you guys have any questions? It looks like you don't have shit. There's nothing. Nothing. So, okay, I'm going to blather a little bit further about something of personal interest to me. I'm going to tell you guys, when you roll your own cigarettes and you've limited yourself to a certain number per day, and you've already gotten past the thing where you can excuse smoking 100s and you're down to your king sizes, what you can do is you can leave this little muffin top on top and it gives you just a few more puffs. Self-control. It's important to attempt to establish self-control, ladies and gentlemen. Delicious cigarette. Delicious bit of apple juice. Okay, so what are the things I'm going to talk about while y'all try to come up with, some kind of question? Otherwise, I'm going to sing this Breton song with you. Hage bazave say. I'm not going to do it. So what do I have? I have, the first thing is I'm just thinking about it a little bit, but I want to go into it more deeply because it brings to mind all kinds of crazy imagery. It's this idea of weaponized hypochondria. God damn, that tastes good. Weaponizing hypochondria seems to me almost Asiatic. It has something to it that smacks of people that we today call gypsies with their purity rituals and taboos coming out of, what's today called northwestern India or parts of Iran, West Asia, with all kinds of rituals about cleanliness and rituals that address their pollution of various kinds, or it smacks of, I don't know, the idea that if you've some Muslim who's had sex with his wife and she was menstruating, and so he has to go through a period of ritual cleansing. Freakish, weaponized hypochondria. We just saw the entire world attacked by weaponized hypochondria. And when you think about it, it really is a horrific thing that's addressed primarily at women, or it targets them most mercilessly because they have their own characteristics, and they should have these characteristics inbuilt biologically to try to keep the area around their children clean, to attempt to keep themselves clean. I'm not saying all women, boy. This one death rock chick I dated, and everything was black. So whenever her laundry piled up on the floor, it was just this black mountain of laundry. Oh man, dirty women who have dirty rooms and shit lying all over the place. They're frightening. What was I talking about? Yes. Women have a biological predisposition to try to keep themselves clean, to keep the area around their children clean, to keep the children clean themselves. And since the advent of our knowledge of things such as, bacterial infection and the rest, this is carried over to ritual ablutions that maybe go a little bit too far. I remember seeing this TV show at some point. It was a documentary or a news program or something, and it was a woman who was suffering from obsessive compulsive disorder and other neurotic shit related to washing her hands, and her hands were bleeding all of the time. And she just had to do it, and she'd start crying as she explained that she had to wash her hands. That's what they do with weaponized hypochondria. Maybe it's not hypochondria, but it's weaponized fear of illness and disease, of sickness. The introduction of the idea that sickness is lurking everywhere and it's coming for you. It's one of the most disgusting things that has happened recently. And also it's a fucked up thing to let out of the bottle, because you can't put that genie back in the bottle. Human beings can get pretty damn freaked out about sickness. And yeah, I don't know. That's a minor one. I think it deserves some thinking about the way in which it has been used to manipulate, the way in which it's associated with the different surveillance regimes associated with whether or not you've allowed yourself to be penetrated today. Have you allowed yourself to be penetrated today? Now you can, in Australia, they're testing a triple vaccination, a triple jab that'll take care of the flu and the coof and some other thing, RSV, I want to say, I can't remember. Yeah, they're testing it now. It's all about your convenience. Mm-hmm. So what was the other thing I wanted to talk about? That's just a minor thing. Just throwing it out there, waiting for these questions to come in. I just have one further thing to discuss with you, ladies and gentlemen, and that is this business. I've talked about it before. I talked about it recently on Grammar, on Twitter. It is the idea of grammar Nazis. Hell, I probably talked about it in live streams before, but I've gotten a little bit more deeply into it, and I have further examples, right? The first idea is that the left has shown the forces of progress, because the idea of left and right, has its limitations. The forces of progress have made the domain of language their primary battle space, and they are perfectly happy to subvert language in a variety of different ways in order to achieve their ends. Everybody here knows about it. It ranges from the introduction of politically correct terminology in the late 80s, early 90s, even earlier, to the whole thing about how you had to say colored person, not Negro, and then you couldn't say Negro, you had to say black, and then you had to say person of color because colored person is extremely offensive, but person of color is perfectly acceptable. All this kind of garbage, differently abled. It goes back even further, indeed, to things like, the point at which they decided to call the Secretary of War the Secretary of Defense. A dishonest little sideways semantic shuffle there. So everyone is more or less familiar with this, but I've been thinking more about the ways in which they take categories and they introduce new categories as a way to conceal old ones. It's an old riff of mine, to conceal by revealing. And in this case, that's exactly what they're doing. So there are a few examples I'll give you, but I just want to make sure that the framework is here so that people understand why I get worked up about things with language. Conservative forces in language are endlessly derided. It must be a coincidence that they call people grammar Nazis. I tweeted about this, actually. Let me just read this damn tweet. I wrote, me. I'm going to talk about this at length at some point. The left pioneered our latest phase of weaponizing language, and most thoroughly. It's their primary battle space. As I've surmised, linguistics departments were military investments from the perspective of unrestricted warfare. What's that weird, Gestapo way of holding the cigarette? Oh, it's like this, isn't it? Yes. As I've surmised, linguistics departments were military investments from the perspective of unrestricted warfare. They tell us, that kind of fell flat, didn't it? They tell us linguistic change is as inevitable as progress. There's nothing you can do about it. It just happens, like migration. And that's a good thing. They call linguistics conservatives grammar Nazis. As I said, that just must be a wacky coincidence. It suits them to frame their ceaseless innovations as emergent, as natural as the seasons, inalterable. They demand free rein in the most important of their areas of operation, and we ape sophistication in explaining why there's nothing to be done about it. I swear to God, everybody has this knee-jerk response. They all have to come in if I complain about language, and they say, language naturally transforms. It develops over time. There's nothing you can do about it. Try to go out and say the N-word. Try saying that. See if they'll do anything about that. Either linguistic change is something that happens naturally and there's nothing you can do about it, or there's a reason that they have like the Académie Française, or the old stories I used to hear from my Icelandic friends about how they wanted to protect the Icelandic language. So instead of bringing in the words fax and pager, they came up with Icelandic words that basically meant like thief of peace for the pager and winged messenger for a fax machine, right? Either those things are happening or they're not. I happen to know that people, say shit like differently abled all the time, and talk about persons of color and BIPOC and all sorts of other horrific belching forth of subterranean gases that passes for linguistic innovation. Either it happens naturally and there's nothing we can do about it, or there is something we can do about it. And it seems to me there is something we can do about it. And that is, I guess, my point when I talk about people who ape sophistication when they come in and say there's nothing to be done about it, because they've all heard it. They've all heard that in some school somewhere, and they were told that nothing could be done. And yet I remember when Ms. Magazine appeared, when they decided that they were going to insert Ms. instead of Miss and Mrs., right? It's bullshit. Pay no mind to the changes. The next change follows the last, as the night does the day, groundlings. Meanwhile, people feign keenness to restore our cultures and traditions. Yet the people who do this can't even be bothered to stop blubbering stupidities like morph and fucking impactful. It's just, it's all such a repulsive farce. It would be one thing if it was just like, oh, it's language and language changes. Oh, there's nothing you can do about it. Oh my God, just don't even worry about it. There's nothing you can do about it. It's natural. It's supposed to happen. And it's a good thing. It's not really happening, but it's a good thing that it is. It's all bullshit. It wouldn't matter, except that this is their battle space, which is why they come in and attempt to paint anyone who tries to push back against their constant innovations in this space, which allow them to conceal existing categories by the introduction of new ones that are designed to obscure the old ones that used to work quite well for us, like Zer and all this bullshit. Pronouns, as I've mentioned many times, it goes deeper than just fucking with the nouns, because they operate in so many places where we don't use proper names or even proper nouns. They're constantly fucking with our shit. And so they've come up with a way to characterize anyone who pushes back against it from the perspective of, resisting progress. They're certainly happy, to say, what are your pronouns, right? But anyone who pushes back against that is called a grammar Nazi. Again, must just be a coincidence. It's a coincidence, right? Must be a coincidence that they chose Nazi. And you know what? It's not just in English. I didn't get a whole lot of responses on it, but I got a couple. In some, they call it police. So it's the idea of the imposition of authority. But let me see what we had here. I got one good one. Yeah. In Swedish, they have language police and language fascist. In Finland, they call it something like pilkunisia or something, comma fucker, I think. And kielipoliisi stands for language police. But in Swedish, they've got, where are the other ones? It's definitely a theme. It's not just in English. In Swedish, they have språkpolis, I guess. I think the A with a little circle over it is like a O sound or something. I thought. I can't remember. I can't fucking... Yes, I can't speak Swedish. Språkfascist. Just a coincidence, right? Multiple languages where anyone who tries to push back on this bullshit is called a fascist. Grammar Nazi. Språkfascist. So anyway, that's the context for this. Let's look at a few examples, shall we, ladies and gentlemen? Here's one. Islamism versus Islam or Muslim. I remember when this happened. I remember when they all started saying Islamism, and I'm like, huh? What? What the fuck? What was the distinction? And then, by paying attention a little bit, I discovered the distinction is that Islamism is what they call any Islam that is political. that takes an interest in the form of government, and attempts to impose the traditional and historical forms of government associated with Islam, be it some flavor of Shiism or Sunni or whatever. Um, the point is that there is no such thing and never has been such a thing. There never has existed on this earth a non-political form of Islam. It doesn't exist. It never has. But then they coined this term Islamism. And with Islamism, we're supposed to imagine, oh, that's Islamism. That's what we have to be careful against. It's not Islam. It's not Muslims. It's Islamism, the kind that's political. But again, there's never been such a thing as a political Islam. Now, that's more or less failed. And you don't hear a whole lot about Islamism. You hear about radical Islamic terrorism. The exercise, like many of these, was just a fucking squid ink waste of time and money. Mostly my time and money. Mostly your time and money. And then we have a personal favorite of mine: white versus whiteness. It's not about you, see? It's not about you. It's not about white people. It's about whiteness, see? It's about whiteness, see? It's these characteristics that have been abstracted. And then we've taken the abstraction and reified it to separate it from whiteness, from white people. So whiteness is a thing now, even though it was an abstraction. There's evidence of it everywhere, and we must fight against it. It's an attempt to obscure the category of white in order to obscure the fact that it is white people that are targeted by all of this. So, yeah, strange. White versus whiteness, another one of these introductions of categories. Now, here's the one I've been bitching about lately on Twitter. Some of you may have been wondering what the hell I was talking about if you follow me over there, and that's governance versus government. Once upon a time, we had states with their associated governments. And the idea was that the people could participate in their governments as citizens with the franchise, capable of voting, for example. And back in those days, it's crazy. I'm old enough to remember it being, long in the tooth as I am. Once upon a time, the big international organizations that tried to do things, they were called lobbyists. They certainly weren't part of the government, or weren't supposed to be. And we would talk about how they had too much influence and the rest. And the other one was NGOs. You know what's crazy about NGOs is right there in the fucking name, it says non-governmental organizations. So we've gone from governments, where franchises, you had to reach voting age, you had to be a citizen. In order to be a part of the government, you'd have to be a citizen of that nation. For the highest office, in many cases, you'd have to be a natural born citizen. Governments is something that exists on paper. Kind of like white people, they actually exist. The various ethnic groups that get glossed as white people are an undeniable, a reality that shouldn't be denied, despite the fact that they keep trying to. Well, even as they introduce whiteness as their cover. So yeah, government and non-governmental organizations. A government that could be accountable, that had to have like budgets that would be subject to financial oversight, where meetings would have to have minutes recorded. Governments and non-governmental organizations, because we wanted everybody to be absolutely clear that that government was one thing, and then all these other organizations, they were subject to the government. They were subject to the state. They were subject to the choices of the people. At least they would pretend this, at least they would engage in, superficial sort of, ritual to make us all feel better about it. But now what has appeared? Governance. Shit like the World Economic Forum, and people will say, oh, it's just an organization where people get together and talk about plans. They don't do anything. No, when they get together behind the scenes in different rooms, shit gets talked about, and it gets handled off the books, on the down low, because it's just governance. just governance. It's not government. Things like the World Health Organization, the UN, these kind of things that were, they don't have any actual standing in many respects. There is no international law, despite what they'll tell you about the International Criminal Court in the Netherlands. They just said, fuck that. We don't even need to worry about it. Let's just call it governance. So I'm sorry to use this vulgarity. If anybody is concerned about vulgar terms, please mute this over the next few seconds. But anyone who uses the term governance, this is what I call semiagog's law. You can know it's absolutely consistent. It never fails. If anyone uses the term governance unironically, they're a cunt. And they're probably an evil cunt. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for that vulgar language. But that's what these people deserve to be called. Huddled, squatting, slapping fucking bloody rags on the fucking floor of the longhouse as they are. So government versus governance. Islamism versus Islam and Muslims. White versus whiteness. They introduce a category. It's much like simply going over to the card catalog, and back in the days, for those who can remember card catalogs, and taking out the all the shit under certain headings of the Dewey Decimal System that you don't want there, and replacing them with others. But the books are still on the shelves. It's all still there. You just can't find it anymore because they fucked with your conventional consensus generating apparatus, which is language. And so, ladies and gentlemen, this is my long-winded way of explaining why it is that I get worked up, why I become exercised by not just terms like governance, Islamism, and whiteness, but also by shit terms like morph and shit terms like impact. Allow me to just vent this. We used to have the words effect and affect. You could effect change, and those changes might affect your life. But all that's very complicated. It has 2 syllables. People can't be expected to say things with 2 fucking syllables. That's too many syllables. We've got to have 1 syllable. And we've got to feel ever so clever about using the term like morph, morph, morph. Look, he morphed. As if we don't have words in our language that already cover that. We can say transform. Remember that word, transform? Transformed. Wow. If you don't want to get all grand about it and you really insist on having just 1 syllable, you can say change. He changed. It changed. Sorry, some cases 2 syllables in the past tense, right? Transform. If you really want to be a cunt about it, you can say metamorphose, right? If you really want to be like, yeah, he metamorphosed. Right? But fucking morph, and impactful. Everything is impacted. As I said, like impacted, a cephalocaudal impaction, a rectal impaction. Everything has become impacted. Oh my God, think of the impact. They mean effects. How could this affect me? Impact. Does it impact you? It has an incredible impact. Everything's an impact. I'm waiting for them to start calling it fucking special impacts instead of special effects, but they're all so queer for fucking CGI that they'll still call just that effects. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I've gotten that out of my system. That hurt me more than it did you. Let's turn around and take a look at whatever these questions are that we have then, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see what's still up here. Good. I haven't passed them. JLM says, so that's a digital backdrop, Semiagog. No, this is not a digital backdrop. Here, how can I show you that it's not a digital backdrop? How can I prove it? Here we go. This is a piece of paper I no longer need. Oh, by the way, for those who don't know, these are the coolest fucking notepads ever. These Rhodia pads, these are the ones. I have to order them special because I like to write on graph paper. And I like A4 much better than 8.5 by 11. Just absolutely no question. All right. This is not a digital backdrop. See? It's real, ladies and gentlemen. It's real. Okay. What other questions do we have? Oh, yeah. By the way, you're supposed to put at Semiagog in there so I can find it once I've, wiped the foam off of my mouth from discussing impactful. Noah Solomon says, Semiagog, will there be another installment of the Light and Darkness series? And if so, what will be the topic? Well, I certainly hope there will be another one. I have heard fairly recently from Anteos. Let me go look over here, see when he last rolled through. Wasn't that long back. He'd been gone for quite some time. Where is he now? What is he, off of Twitter now? What the fuck? What the fuck? Yes. I last heard from him on February 2nd, so not long ago. He said, well, I don't want to go into details, but he basically said, I haven't forgotten about our project. I can't say yet when exactly, but I think the next one up, so it looks like there's going to be another one. I can't tell you when it will be, but apparently he wants to cover the Thule Society. So yeah, expect something on the Thule Society. Yeah. And as soon as I know more about it, believe me, I will announce it because I think it's a great series, and I'm very happy that Anteos has put in the necessary work for it. Forbidden Anthropologist says, Semiagog, how's nursing that creeping juniper back to health going? Well, I trimmed the hillside, which is straight that way beyond this wall, and I had to clear the whole damn thing because it was just covered in undergrowth and trees that were coming up and everything else. And I cleared out the area around it, but it's not like I gave it fertilizer or anything. I don't know. It's my understanding is it's supposed to be fairly hardy. I'm trying not to walk on it. But yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see what happens with it this spring. Now that the area around it's been cleared. And also right about that way is a big ass tree. I mean, big ass for around here. It's probably got a 2.5 foot in diameter trunk down at the base. It's a hickory or a chestnut oak or something. And it looks like it wants to fall on my building right here. And if it did, it would hit a bunch of these bookshelves over here and maybe even kill me at my desk. So I'm gonna have to do something with that. It's on a slope and it's already tilted heavily. And what's crazy is the guy I bought this place from, I can't say he's wrong. I don't know. But he has piled whenever trees fall, and they just fall everywhere around here. It's crazy. I've never seen so many fucking fallen trees. Every tree is fallen. It's crazy. It's a oak hickory with some pines mixed in. There's a lot of sand and rock in the soil here. And so I guess the roots don't get very deep, and I'm at the end of a valley, so the wind comes in very strong sometimes. You get a lot of storms, so it knocks trees over. I guess they didn't dig in enough, but there are trees like this all over the joint. I mean, trees way leaning. And so what this guy does on some of them is when a tree falls, he'll cut it up and then he piles the logs on the roots on one side in such a fashion that it seems like it would prevent it from tipping up quite as easily. Given the leverage that's involved with the length of the tree and what part of it is most likely the canopy to be catching the wind when leaves are on it, I don't know how much all that matters. But that tree has a bunch of it piled on it and it's leaning already, and parts of the trunk are rotting out of the center. I don't know. Some of them fall. Some of them stand up and just shed limbs and stuff until they're half rotten. There are a bunch of them still just standing there. The price that an arborist will cost to take down one tree is so crazy that yeah, I don't know. I'll probably take that one down though, because I just don't want it to fall on me. I really do. That would just suck, the great adventure of my life. And then, everybody's like, what happened to Semiagog? What happened to Oliver? And shit, my mother has to send some kind of welfare check up here to find me under a tree. So yeah, I don't know. Who knows? Yeah, but Forbidden Anthropologist, I will keep you posted on the creeping juniper. If it looks like it's growing, I'll take some pictures. Ha! Son of Hastur says Semigog on self-control, thoughts on fasting. Lent has begun for some of us. I don't know, man. I lived in Istanbul when they had, and I got to see lots of people with, doing Ramadan. Um, I don't know. There, everybody has different ways. When I try to smoke less, I end up drinking more. It's like trying to push self control is very often like trying to push a a big inflatable ball into the pool. You're pushing it down into the water, but because it's round and wet and slippery, it wants to go floop and come up the other side as you're pushing it down. So whenever you try to control an impulse, particularly something associated with alcohol or nicotine or whatever, or eating, um, I find that it's kind of like where you plug the hole in the dike with your finger, right, and then water starts squirting out somewhere else, because the pressure needs a release. And so I find that to be the most difficult thing about it. Um, I find measurement can work, because if you don't measure it, you can't quantify what you are or are not doing. So these days I've gotten myself down now, through long trouble, from about 2 packs a day, well, between 30 and 40 cigarettes a day. And then I got it down to about 14. And then I tried to squeeze it down to 10, and it kept popping back up to 14. And then I've managed to mash it down to 7, and I've kept that for, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, and now I'm cranking it down a little more. Now I'm down to 6, and 6 that are king sized, not 6 100s. However, I do still leave a little tobacco on top to get some extra puff out of that. So yeah, I find quantifying it can help. So what I do with cigarettes is I figure the most important thing is my body needs more time to clear it. So from when I get up, I don't smoke any cigarettes for 3 hours, and then I have 2 hours in between cigarettes. And what I do is now I expand that amount of time in between. And it's a weird thing. You want to know how addiction works, man? Like the if I had my last cigarette at 7, at 9, I'll like look up and check the watch, like down to the minute, and my body will know when an hour is rolled around. So it's not easy. That doesn't mean that you should not learn how to control it, as I'm trying to do. The only good advice I can give you is something that I put in the form of a painting, though it was a collaboration with a friend of mine who did the oil paintings. It's in a project called Chivalry, a Memory Tradition, and I show stirrups. It's the idea of balancing atop a horse. So it's kind of like the idea of chivalry. If a horse is on the back of a man, it's absurd. The man is supposed to be on the back of a horse. That's rightly oriented, right? The thinking part of you is in charge of the beast. It's kind of like a variant of the whole thing of Pasiphae and the bull leading to the labyrinth and the minotaur at the center. The idea of man that is a beast that is a man. Even to the Hermetic idea of man as an ape and an angel conjoined. All these themes come together, and that's kind of what I'm hitting with the idea of the horse and the rider, the spirit or soul and the flesh. And so mounted on a horse, it's very good to have balance that comes from the stirrups. And there's actually an old, I think it's in Rumi, they talk about it. Ibn Rashid, I think that's Averroes, came back from North Africa to Spain. I think it was Ibn Rashid. Don't quote me on. Yeah, it wasn't Avicenna, and it wasn't Ibn al-Arabi. It had to be Ibn Rushd. Let me check. I think he was carried back to Spain after his death, and there was a tradition that when his body was being carried back, it got carried back on the back of a donkey or an ass, which again ties together with the idea of the horse and rider, right? But in this case, the person was dead. Yeah, Ibn Rushd. Yeah, and he was an Andalusian. So I'm remembering the story right. Basically, the story goes when he died, they slung his body on one side of the donkey, but to counter balance it. Remember, we're talking about Lent and self-control and balance and stirrups. The body was on one side. The other side was a big bag full of all the books and shit that he had written across the course of his life. So it was almost like, you know, the scales, the balance to measure the worth of his life, the weight of his body against the works that he had produced, you know, the knowledge that he had codified and put into some communicable form with these books. So to balance the one thing against the other. Anyway, all those elements come to my mind when I draw this forth, the idea of stirrups. And it's a mnemonic exercise related to the art of memory. If anybody is interested in it, go do a search for virtue, chivalry as a memory tradition, and you'll find a PDF of the exhibit with the associated text and paintings that I did with a friend of mine. So I bring all of that up because one of the ways to deal with the vice is to balance it with something. So my thing is, for example, if I have a project I need to do that's paying, so I need to sit down in front of the computer and think about the stupid shit they want me to think about, I'll be like, I don't want to do it yet. Oh, fuck. I mean, there's 100 different things I need to be doing, like cleaning the oven, right? But in the end, that actually works for me because rather than doing nothing, I'll do all the things I possibly can do to avoid doing that work. But because I want to do anything other than that, I literally clean the toilet, clean the oven, vacuum the house, right? Like, you know, change the oil in my car or whatever, like find, something else. And I don't know, it's not exactly the stirrups. The idea of the stirrups is to take one vice that is the lesser vice and indulge it at the expense of the greater vice. I guess that's the easiest way to say it. But another way to say it is that it's like a kid with a toy, you know, when the little kid's like playing with some shit and it won't fucking let go of it. You got to put something else in its hands. Okay, right? Give that part of yourself something else to play with. But the trick is it can lead you, you know, into a swamp of other vices. And so, you know, in the end, there is something to be said for what they call cold turkey and the rest. But it's just, here's the last answer to this question, because this is a subject I've actually given quite a bit of thought to, having to confront my own vices in so many respects. There is a book by Roberto Assagioli. Let me see if I have it here. I almost have it over here. I got most of my psychology back. Where the fuck is it? Ah! What the fuck is it? No, it's not Eric Neumann. It's not John Weir Perry. It's not Reich. Fuck! Where is it? The fuck? Ah! This is just crazy. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. What the fuck? Okay, this is not good. Sorry, this is a very bad scene indeed when I can't find my books. Always I can go straight to them, man, and it's maybe I lent it out, or maybe I think I have it and I don't. Anyway, Roberto Assagioli. Is it Assagioli or Assaglioli? Assaglioli is what I want to say. Yes. Roberto. No, it's Assagioli. Assagioli. He's got a great book called Psychosynthesis. But relative to, or in relation to your question, son of Hastur, I commend to your attention his book. It's called The Act of Will. Is that what it's called? Yes, it's called The Act of Will. And he talks about different types of will. And the primary one that people try to use is the cold turkey one, to say no and put your foot down and just stop. And he refers to that as kind of like the Victorian will, or like, it's a straight thing. And he talks about other ways of learning to apply your will, like a skillful application of the will rather than like this blunt force attempt. And then the last thing I'll throw in there, that's enough to get you started anyway, is don't let the perfect become the enemy of the good. In the past, when I've quit smoking before, I smoke one and then I'm like, I fucked up. It's not, I didn't quit anymore. It's not clean anymore. I might as well just start again. Nope. Do not allow the perfect to become the enemy of the good. 3%er says, Semiagog, hey, Ollie, great to see you back at it. My question is, what are your thoughts on East Palestine? I don't know enough about how the chemicals break down and all that shit. John D did a Twitter space recently where he discussed what happens with those chemicals. Yes, it's bad. The other problem is that we hear primarily about the one chemical, whatever it is that's used to make PVC. Is it vinyl chloride? I can't remember. But apparently there were a number of other ones that were released into the environment. It's bad, but I think it's being way overblown. Now, if it had happened in my backyard, ask me about it, and maybe I wouldn't say that. So I'm not saying it's good, right? But I do believe that it's being really radically overblown in some respects. However, it's not my area. Metaphorically, in terms of an area that about which I have any kind of real knowledge, like chemistry, and it's not physically in my backyard, so that's easy for me to say. So take that for what it's worth. My impression is that it is something that is going to pretty quickly clear up. So yeah, but maybe not. I mean, go out in the world and look, and you'll doubtless see some take or flavor of it that suits you, or fits with your native emotional reaction to what occurred. In my case, as I said, I'm just not qualified to opine on the chemical part. From what I heard from D, though, I again add that when he was talking about it, he was really dealing with that one chemical. And it seems that there were others involved that we haven't really heard all the news about. So delicious. So yeah, that could mean that his take on it isn't complete enough. But in terms of that one chemical, it does seem as though it will be able to sort itself out in the environment. We're not talking about dealing with a half-life or something. So yeah, that's my take on it. But again, it's not my thing. I don't know a great deal about it. Thank you, 3%er. Dark Glasses Woody says, Semiagog, what is the most esoteric conspiracy theory do are sympathetic? I think he must mean you. What's the most esoteric conspiracy theory you are sympathetic to? I mean, see, the problem is when you say conspiracy theory, that's just a gloss for slobberers who don't want to acknowledge that people make plans, that powerful people plan to do things, and they plan privately. None of the ones that I hold to are particularly esoteric. I mean, I guess the most esoteric one, and that's not really esoteric, I mean, given all the shit you hear from flat earthers and the moon landing didn't happen and all that kind of stuff, I believe that the roots of our current problems started with the British and Dutch East India companies, and that the people who, that some of the families managed to hang on to their wealth and power in some respects over time and amplify it enormously, and that they are primarily the ones responsible for the shit that we're currently dealing with. How's that for esoteric? Like I said, it's not particularly esoteric. That's all I have for you, man. Seamus O'Blade Explain, says Semiagog, what are your thoughts on the Armenia and Azerbaijan situation? Well, that's a game between Russia and NATO, a game between Azerbaijan and Armenia, a game between Turkey and Russia, a game between Turkey and Armenia, and Israel's mixed in there. And I would have to say, probably Iran has their finger in some part of that pie too. So it's very complicated. I can't say much about it. The Caucasus is being hit in a number of respects from a number of different angles by NATO, by Turkey, by others who have an interest in chiseling away at what is basically the southern fortress wall of Russia. And it's been going back and forth for a while. Armenia looks to be getting screwed now. My quick guess and quick take is that Russia is not engaging as fully with things going on there at the moment as they could, because they have their attention absorbed with what's going on in Ukraine. But I think they have not stopped looking at it. I don't think that they've stopped involving themselves in it. I think there are limits to what they can do, but depending on how things go in Ukraine, they could bring their attention back around there in a dramatic fashion. And I think that a lot of other players like Armenia, Azerbaijan, Turkey, and the rest are all kind of waiting to see what happens with Russia. In any case, if Russia fails in Ukraine, I think you're going to see a bunch of shit happen with Georgia. A bunch of shit happen with Armenia. But there is one guy on Twitter I follow who takes a close interest in what happens in Armenia. So if you want to follow him, he's not, posting a bunch of his own stuff on it, but he follows the news and things very closely in relation to events with Armenia and Azerbaijan. So, maybe track him in terms of articles he forwards. That's at Matt1Dog. That's @ MAT, just one T, then the number one, then dog, DOG, Matt1Dog, at Matt1Dog. And you'll, I basically, I track what he posts about Armenia just because he trawls the headlines for stuff. Let's see here. Noah Solomon says, are you listening to the Alain Stivell version of Trimortolod, or some degenerate version such as one I heard lately as a hip-hop beat? I listen to the Stivell version. I also listen to Analarch, Din din don doneganezano. Din din don doneganezan. Ba-na-na-na-na-na-na. Yeah, so I listened to the Stivell one, and that's, of course, the classic. There's that, what's her name? That other, she's appeared on stage with him. And so I guess she had the baton handed to her a little bit. Tree. What's her name? Yeah, this chick. Who is this chick? No, I don't want to hear your fucking advertisement. Nolwenn Leroy. Nolwenn Leroy. Or Leroy. But there's another one. There's one by the Longest Johns, is it? Yes. Another one I listened to by the Longest Johns, which is more the sea shanty type. But those are really the only two or three that I dig. Hage bazar will say, tra la 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 la. Hage bazar will say, e war servi jures. Me. Okay, what else do we have? Sigma Sneed says, hey, Semidog, nice place. Well, thank you. It's really just a tarted up shop with a slab floor, but it is mine own, however modest it is. And what is next here? What else do we have here? Paul Moosefoot says grammar Jew. That's kind of funny. Grammar Jew. Random the Demon says hello, Oliver. Well, hello, Random the Demon. What else here? Sorry, just scrolling through here. As usual, ladies and gentlemen, it is best if you put an @Semiagog in here so that I will see that you asked a question. Dark Glasses Woody says, Semiagog, what do you know about the distinction between the natural law foundations of the legal system and the default corporate overlay? I don't even know what that means. I'm trying. Someone who has proper knowledge of the law, and that ain't me, might be able to instantly grok what it is you're trying to say, but due to my sad lack of knowledge in that respect, I'm afraid I can't answer. I wish I could. Although I will say that the main thing seems to be in 1600 under Queen Elizabeth, when coming back to a previous thing hinted at earlier about the British East India Company. And I'm sure that there's a background earlier with the Dutch East India Company. But in terms of English common law, we have the corporation appear, so far as I understand it, and that's in a limited respect. The corporation really appears as a legal entity in 1600 with the charter for the British East India Company. And at that point, you have a legal entity that is not, for example, a monastery or a church or an estate associated with a lord or something like that, right? You have something much more abstract that can have an ongoing, legally recognized identity. And, again, I don't really understand your question, Dark Glasses Woody, but perhaps you should go and take a look at the earliest appearances of a corporation and the kind of language that was used to describe them, how they were conceived in the earliest days. Perhaps that will provide you with some hint that will carry you further. Best I can do, man. Sorry, I tried. Okay. Amy Destro. What's up? What's up? Hello, Miss Destro. My friend Destro says, you wearing that motorcycle jacket just to look cool, or did you get a bike? No, I have not gotten a bike yet. I was going to get one. And I think my friend who is going to give me the old Honda Nighthawk I think he doesn't like me anymore. So if I want one, I'm going to have to buy my own. And to be honest with you, I don't really need to go fast. Yeah, I might get one. I kind of want one. Yeah, but no. I'm just wearing this to look cool. And anyway, this is like way too thin to properly be a motorcycle jacket. This is one of these jackets where they did it up to have it look like a motorcycle jacket. It happens to be very, very good leather, but it's good leather like a woman's handbag would be, not like you're going to go rolling down the expressway and this will protect you from road rash. It's a little too thin. It's also kind of beat up and old. I liked it back in the day, though, because it's reversible. You could take it and go boop, and turn it the other way, and you have a black nylon jacket. So, yeah. If you were wearing a leather jacket and you had to escape, you could flip it inside out and, turn your baseball cap around the other way, and you'd be able to you would be able to escape under different colors, disguised. Sorry. So yeah, Amy Destro. Sorry. Let's see here. GM says, have you ever traveled to Africa? Man, no offense, particularly to people that I know, respect, and like Robert Dwegan, and definitely Conscious Caracol down in South Africa, and others. Corresponded with another guy, a chef from South Africa, who I really like. So no offense to those guys. They make it sound very cool, and I would totally dig seeing rooibos just growing somewhere because I like the tea so much. But I don't like Africa. I'm not interested in Africa. There's never been anything about Africa that interests like now today I would want to go just to see how white people live in Africa. Um just to see how some other group of crazy white people like adapted themselves to that environment and made it their own. But otherwise I have no interest in Africa. Even strangely, I don't even have an interest in going to India. In South America, I have no fucking interest in. I don't know what it is. I was really into Anatolia, Asia Minor, like Persia, or Iran, or Turkey, or Europe. Spain, again, Europe, areas of Russia, and then maybe Central Asia and Mongolia. But how do I say this? I'm a northern hemisphere kind of guy. I have no interest in the southern hemisphere. Fucking zero. Like none. With the sole exception of Australia, a bunch of fucking savages. However, again, I would want to go there just to see how Whitey like adapted himself to the environment. And it would be cool to like get drunk with Chris Gard sometime. But otherwise I just I've never been to Africa. I was supposed to go to a monastery on Mount Sinai when I was studying Arabic in high school, and I wasn't able to pay for it, but it was likely that I was going to get a scholarship to be able to go for the summer and study Arabic there, and it all fell through, so I did not go. And that would have been as close as I ever got to Africa. Yeehaw says, Semigog, will you ever have Donovan Warland back on the channel? I love both y'all's content. Donovan's a great guy. I've had him on several times, as you must know. Be very happy to have him on again. It just depends on what the subject is. I'm trying to think of a game show concept, and I want to use that game show concept just to pull a bunch of friends in that I've been meaning to have on that I just haven't, what labor in my mind? What is it? Torture myself. I'm trying to think of the fucking word. Whatever it is, I go to way too much trouble worrying about what the discussion is going to be and trying to work it out beforehand and knowing that everybody has so if you don't do a one-on-one, if you bring in a group of people, then you get a different dynamic. And I want a game show for that. Like I want to bring Aureus Press in. He's had me on over on his channel. He's a nice guy. I like him. We're mutuals over on Twitter. I really want to get him in. Donovan Warland is another one. There are several people like that. So yeah, stand by for the game show concept to really come together. I'm working on it. I got a basic idea. I have a basic idea. So yeah, and Yeehaw, if you're over there, say howdy to him. Donovan's cool. He's a peep. He is my friend. Okay. What else we got here? Paul Moosefoot says, Semigog, have you ever had a rye whiskey? I enjoy those myself. Yeah, man. My people come from New Orleans, so Sazeracs, man. But me, I like bourbon. I mean, this is just apple juice, but if it weren't apple juice, it would be bourbon, and it would have a bunch of too much in the way of Fee Brothers, just their standard aromatic bitters and maple syrup and expressions from an orange peel. So yes, Paul Moosefoot, I have had rye. Alabaster says, Semigog, when will AA finally accept that his gay versus British Empire position will never be right? How many nails in the coffin will it take? I don't know. I don't think he's ever going to acknowledge that. I don't know if that's just a decision he's made based on the application of instrumental reason. Like maybe he's just decided that he knows what he's for, which is for the United States to be utterly destroyed. Not one stone standing atop of another, salt in the fields, delenda est or whatever. So maybe he just really doesn't care about the truthfulness of the academic arguments, which, would be kind of based. Um, if it weren't for the fact that I live here. But everybody should know that even though I'm arguing with him about that, I consider him a friend, and I'm also, I wouldn't say I'm beholden, but I certainly good grace and gratitude um, uh, uh, are are what are required from me for the fact that he has helped me to advance my channel. He's kindly been over here as a guest. He's, I like him. So this is just, it's a peripheral fight. But it's not anything that I get worked up over. Morph, on the fucking other hand, and he says morph too, man. Like I actually, frankly, his use of morph causes me a whole lot more sleepless nights than, whether or not he'll acknowledge that there's a continuum that exists within which both the British Empire and the American one have their connections and clear developments. Amy Destro says, Semigog, you don't got to go fast anymore. Just enjoy the ride. Yes, which is why I kind of want, I don't know. I might do the, what's that one? It's a fucking Indian company, Royal Enfield. Just get one of the little single seaters, and there are a couple of them. They got one with the chrome tank I kind of like, or I want to get what a lot of people were still driving in Istanbul back when I lived there in the 90s. They had these single cylinder thumpers, these BMWs, 4-stroke single cylinder, with a little single saddle seat. And I've always kind of wanted one of those because my dad had one before I was born. I had an R75/5, but yeah, I kind of want one of those. I want like an old thumper. Yeah. Cause I don't want to go fast. That's why I loved having an Oldsmobile Delta 88, man. You ain't got to go anywhere fast. That big ass bench seat, you can put your hand all the way over on that velour covered bench seat. Just rest your hand up on that fucking power steering wheel. Don't ever have to go fast. And so with a motorcycle, I'd probably do that again. The problem is, kind of don't want drum brakes. I missed not sure said, Semigog, can one be pro-capitalism and anti-corporate? Yeah, sure. But all that's ideology. The idea of, like, for me to say I'm pro-capitalism and for me to say I'm anti-corporate, like, no offense, but to me, that's just all ideology. I don't care. I'm more like, in my mind, this is what happens in my mind. I look at something and I go, bullshit, right? Or I look at a person and I go, cunt, right? That's what happens in my mind now. There's nothing about, is that capitalist, right? Like, none of that happens anymore. I'm just like, that person is evil and I want them gone. It's not ideological for me, or at least I don't think it is. Yeah. Light Brigade using the term morph. You came very close to being blocked, my friend. Okay. Fuck. I hate when this does. Everybody here should know that what happens with my chat is that, like, it will update and drop down to the bottom, and I'll lose my place because I'm a boomer like that. Yeah, base Global South disrespecter. Yes, fuck the Global South. No offense. Again, people like Conscious Caracol, Robert Dwegan, Chris Gard, they're all down that way, where in the wintertime, your balls are sweaty. I feel for them. I can't say I'd go visit them. Sigma Sneed says, Semigog, any chance we'll see Keith Woods on the program soon? Let me think about that. No. Justin Stokes says, Semigog, how does one tell the older folks what's coming without looking crazy to them? You can't. Okay, first off, I'm an older folk. I am one of the older folks. And it's still difficult for me to keep up with some of the shit that's changing around me. If I hadn't, I think about it like it's kind of like soft bones in a baby's head or some shit, or the what is it, the fontanelle? What's that shit? They have a gap up there that like closes shortly after birth or whatever. The soft bones, the flexibility of thinking. This last time that I had to confront the fact that there were just mountains of shit that I had missed. I mean, I was never a shit lib, if you will. I had my old buddy Tim, who you're not quite a shit lib if you're hanging out with him. I firearms, all kinds of things that kept me out of that category, and yet there were still all kinds of there were all kinds of things that I missed. That I was not fully aware of. Like when I came back from Turkey the last time around 2010, I was like, what the fuck is going on around here? Um, and so I had to, in my mid 40s. Yeah. So I was around 45 when I was getting red pilled. I'm trying to think 2018, I would have been like 47, I guess. Um, I was alt light, right? And I had to come around and say, hey, wait a minute, they are doing shit to white people, and hey, wait a minute, maybe it isn't just about the content of your character, and I had to do that at 47. But I'm the kind of person also who, gets into weird ass shit and keeps a fairly flexible mind about some things. And still, it took me a while, man. I remember when people would come in and be like, they'd come into my comment section, they'd be like, "Hey, what's up, friend?" And I'd be like, "Fuck you with your friend, and fuck all the black wool of these National Socialist uniforms, and fuck all this bullshit. Fuck out of here." Um, and a lot of that is still with me, by the way. It hasn't left. I'm still as individualist as I always was, except I distinguish individuation from rank sort of egocentrism and atomization. But anyway, I have not fundamentally changed, but certainly I'm entertaining ideas that in the past I would never have dreamed of doing. And even for me, I mean, I'm not good company. There are people who won't invite me to parties because they think I'm strange. My mother sees my hair and shit. She's like, "Don't ever tie that shit up. Oh my God, it's so freakish." I'm I don't care that much about what most people think of me. And then my peers and the rest, I'm probably more concerned about what they think of me than I should be. Even for me, that was very long winded. Sorry. Even for me, it was not an easy process. So I guess the short answer is I don't think there's much you can tell them. There's just not. If they don't have that native kind of flexibility, or I guess that's what I was getting at when I said I haven't really changed. I don't think people who come round have really changed either. They just have a few things that were placed there, like roadblocks, removed, and the natural articulation of their attitudes and personality can then kind of do what it does, right? I don't think people really do change in I think we each of us has like one or two major changes in us. Um and I certainly didn't have the energy for major political changes. I basically just decided, you know what? Yeah. I used up all my major true transformations, the one or two that everybody gets in life. Um, that was more about becoming much more realistic about females and about my own behavior and mm, becoming a bit more mature. At least I hope in that regard. And by the time I completed that hellish process, after I leapt through that hoop of fire and tucked and rolled smoldering through the sand pit and arose again, I didn't have energy left for major political changes. And I think most older people, they've already exhausted the major transformations that they're constitutionally able to tolerate uh, or to undergo. So I don't know that there's much hope of changing people's minds. Amy Destro, who's in here, is somebody like who's from if you believe in such things, from my generational cohort, and And she totally flipped around on some things. I was like, holy shit. But again, I don't think that was like truly a change within her. I think some native aspects, not to psychologize somebody publicly, forgive me, but it's all good. I think just her native character was, fuck you, you know, certainly was when I first met her. And so I think people like that, where they're just like, fuck that, I'm not putting up with that shit anymore. Those kind of people can see, but others can't. And here's the good news. It doesn't matter if you can bring most people along with you. Um, as academic agent has pointed out, and I think he's absolutely correct. It's a tiny minority elite that's going to drive these changes anyway. So, the vast majority of those people, and AA has talked about this too, they're going to do what everybody fucking else does. What's going to change their mind is when they think they need to in order to be like everyone else. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. Probably spent too much time on answering that question. Hopefully it was worth something though. The Geezer 30 says, Semigog, here, pal, have you not given a thought to getting into pipe smoking? It's a life changer, pal. Complex, flavorsome, backy, taste only, no inhale, changed my life, and I have a new hobby. My father's a pipe smoker. My buddy Tim was a pipe smoker, and I smoked pipe for 5 or 6 years. I still have a rack of, I don't know, probably 15 or 20 of them. Still got a very nice pre-Republic Peterson Meerschaum. I still have Balkan Sobrani from 30 years ago in a big ass jar. Yeah, I've thought about breaking out my my pipes to smoke them, but the thing is, it's still about control. You can slip out of control with the pipe just like you can with the cigarettes. And the thing is that if you're an actual smoker, like actual smokers, this whole idea that you don't inhale cigars is nonsense. It's nonsense. It's recent. I can't use that word on I can't use that word on YouTube. It's recent, not straight nonsense. My buddy Tim, when he smoked cigars, he smoked them just like a fucking cigarette. And people who smoke pipes, they inhale the shit out of that. All the people who think that you don't like, I'm just going to puff it in my mouth. I'm sorry. I mean, God bless you. God bless you. But it's not straight. You smoke a fucking pipe like you do, or men do. Sorry, I don't want to be attacking good-natured people. But somebody like me, I'm not going to have all that delicious pipe tobacco right there in front of me, and I'll just be like, like like when you see somebody in a movie who's supposed to be smoking this kind of shit. Like, no, it's not going to happen. Oh, I just want to taste it here. No, I'm going to breathe it into my lungs. I'm going to blow it out through my nose. I'm going to taste that delicious tobacco. I'm going to feel it tightening up my blood vessels. Yeah, I'm going to feel it causing my liver to dump that sugar into my bloodstream. Yeah. It's just, this is never going to happen. So this way I can dose myself, more carefully. So sorry, the Geezer. No disrespect intended. Sorry, I get carried away a little bit here and there. Dark Glasses Woody says, Semigog, do you believe worldly powers are concerned with assuaging karmic burden and preserve the pantomime of self-governance for this purpose? Or is it now mostly a rhetorical device? I think they just preserve the pantomime of self-governance because governance. I saw the trick you just played there. You just made me say it unironically. They preserve the pantomime inherent in the idea that we have any kind of sovereignty or any role in our own government. They preserve that to fuck us. And that's what's for. I mean, yeah, maybe, 1 in 100 has some idea of their past lives. But as my buddy Tim once told me, I was like, do any of the people in control of the world, do you think any of them remember their past lives? And he said, yeah, maybe some few of them. And I said, well, then why is it all so fucked up? He's like, you can have a really long memory and still be a fucking idiot. So, yeah, there's an answer for you. Oh, I got to go faster. I'm way behind now. Oh, Christ, I'm way behind. Wow, I just lost my space. Wow, that's just... oh, no, it switched to top chat. Dirtbags. I should be on live chat. How far back? Now it's even less. I just lost all my... maybe I can get them over here. This thing just refreshed. Okay, I found where I am over here. All right. Casey says, I enjoy poetry. Can I get an autographed copy? No, not unless you meet me in person, because sending me the book and then having me sign it and then going to the post office to mail it back to you is just a pain in the ass. And anyway, you should get a copy and see if you like it first anyway, and we'll go from there. Sorry. Now, see, if I go over to this other one in StreamYard, I can no longer see the bright orange thing that says Semigog. So I'm going to try to go through this quickly. Grammar Jew. Okay. Fuck, this is ridiculous. Blame this on YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. I am just screwed here trying to figure out where I was before. Like, I don't even know. Paul Moosefoot, why is smoking so cool? It's great until you can't breathe anymore. Sorry, I'm just going to have to pick up. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. At least I can say I'm not charging you for super chats, but when I come back, I'm going to start charging you fuckers. Sigma Sneed, Semigog, what do you think of the new Napoleon movie by Ridley Scott starring Joaquin Phoenix? I haven't seen it. I never liked Joaquin Phoenix, and Ridley Scott, I swear to God, ever since I saw that fucking Gladiator movie, and they've got the guys fighting in the goddamn Roman arena, and they're wearing 17th century, one guy's wearing fucking 17th century Persian helmet, and I'm just like, fuck off, man. Just fuck off. Oh my God. Just fuck off. Just fuck right off. That's how I feel about Ridley Scott. And given what he's done, plus the thing where, like, you know, they're fighting in the forest at the beginning of Gladiator, and they've got the catapults with the flaming shit they fire through the woods, and they just explode like artillery. Again, I'm just like, fuck off. I mean, yeah, you could do something with Greek fire, but it's not going to explode. It's just fuck off. All of you need to fuck off. Why can't they make a movie that's historically accurate? Just why? Why? My life is hard. Julius Flavius says, Semigog, how do you deal with the dust gathering on top of your books? At least twice a year, I vacuum all of the shelves, and the books come off. The shelves get wiped down. The tops and sides of the books get vacuumed. The whole area around them gets vacuumed. And if I can manage it, I'll at least open them and flip them. Because if you don't attend to your library, like, you know, washing and turning back down the folded edges and things and that kind of attention, you can end up with vermin in them. They will work their way just right along the row of books. You'll have like a fucking bug hole that just runs through 15 books along the shelf because they just cruise right through just like they would through a tree trunk. So as my bookbinding teacher taught me back in the day, the best way to protect your library is to use it. So yeah, a couple times a year I vacuum everything, and I wipe stuff down, you know, to wipe the dust off of the shelf surfaces, and I'll open the books and flip through them. Yeah. And books that I haven't gotten to that need to be opened because I haven't read them yet, you go through and you do the proper process of opening and everything as well. All right. Faye Ale says, what is your favorite place to relax in your new house? Well, it's a bit odd because in the summertime, I like it out here, but in the wintertime, I like it in my proper house because it heats better than this one does. So I don't know. I'm stuck between the two of them, but Yeah, I think it's probably just to chill in my bed and read a book and fall asleep, or get up in the morning and read a little bit more. I wake up, I go downstairs, I put my tea in to steep, and then I go back up and read for a while and come down, and the tea's like super strong. I mean, super fucking strong. That's how I like my tea. That's why the English breakfast teas are so fucking good, because the Brits, that's the one thing, God bless them, they understand fucking strong ass tea. You know, they joke about, like, you know, people who workman's teas where the spoon will stand straight up and down in it, like good strong ass teas. That's the shit. So yeah, probably it's that spot after I wake up, go downstairs, run the kettle, pour the hot water in, let the tea steep, crawl back into my bed to read for a little bit before I go down. And yeah, I live a stylish life. I don't have to get on the expressway. I don't have to jump in the shower. They can all fuck themselves. Not sure. It says Semigog, how long before the libraries are turned into homeless shelters and safe drug use spaces? First off, they are already. So Google can edit all of the books for your own good, of course. Well, it's already happened. That's it. Random the Demon says, Semigog, are you ever going to do another stream on Conan? Conan, tell me, Conan, what is best in life? To crush your enemies. I don't know. I feel like we kind of covered it. And the guys who I had on, Conan Esquire and Dave, God damn it, man. Who does all the pulp stuff? What's his name? I think he's from Pennsylvania or whatever. Very cool guy. I feel like those guys really covered it pretty thoroughly. So I'm kind of with a guy from V here. I think I'm gonna do an Elric stream before too long, and I've got some people who expressed an interest in that. I just have to get it off my ass after this project is done over the next 2 weeks, and yeah, I'll do something with Elric. Fraser says, Semigog, who's your preferred historian, Herodotus or Thucydides? Yes. I like both of them. So I don't have, I mean, if I had to like one more, it'd be Herodotus. But I mean, they're both very good, and you kind of have to read them both as a set, because they're really talking about, you know, two phases of a whole sort of historical block. Donnie Browning, Field Marshal, says, have you got a lantern yet? Yes, I have multiple lanterns. I got this Chinese craziness, which is bright as fucking hell, and it recharges, and it gives me a neat little battery. You know what I hate about it, though? In order to turn it off, you have to phase through the flash, which is just fucking stupid. Also, it should have a little red lens on here, and it allows me to recharge. But that's not a proper lantern. For a proper lantern, I have a World War I steel lantern that has a candle within it, and the candle is even spring loaded. It's from World War I, as I said, and it has a little window that closes over it that just leaves a tiny little slit. So if you don't want to show a bunch of light, you put your candle in it, you light it, you close it, and it has vents and stuff in the top and a carrying handle on the top, a little base so you can set it down and point it at things. You can open it fully, and it's got the candle flame with a little reflector, but you can fold the little window closed, and it's got a slit down the center, which just puts one little narrow beam. That's very cool. I have a carbide lantern, and then, you know, I have a typical kerosene lantern, one of the Coleman type lanterns. Well, where is it? Something like this. Oh, where is this sucker? Yeah, like this one. You know, these standard old ones. The problem is that it's just hell to get kerosene now. This will probably be my walking lantern, because it has all the cool shit here, right? You can raise and lower the mantle, but what's this other? Yeah, this thing's fucking cool. You can go, whoop. You can raise it up off the top to get at it to light it, and then you just go, whoop, shoot it down. Look at that. Can you imagine walking through the darkness with that, like a proper fucking hermit? That's what I'm going to be doing. The thing is, before I do that, I'm going to have to cut the path through the woods, and I finally walked all of the property. Wow, that's some Intense carbon. I finally walked all the property now, so I see what it looks like. You know, I got through it when it was bug free. But I did not have time this winter to cut a path. So, yeah, I'm not going to be able to walk properly with my lantern. Uh, the border of my property, until I cut the path, and that is going to have to wait at least until this coming winter. Because already, man, today it's totally fucking warm. It's still February, and I came outside to do some of my exercise, going up and down and up and down the hills. So I get like an hour of cardiovascular exercise, and it's warm out. I had to strip down to a t-shirt, and by the time I was done, I was covered in sweat, man. I'm like, I was just saying that I'm ready for summer. I'm kind of tired of winter, but I'm not sure I am. Like, I mean, fucking warm weather at the end of February. It better get cold again. That's all I got to say. Light Brigade says, Semigog, do you score as an INTJ if you don't mind sharing? I never took a proper version of that test, so I don't know. I don't know. Oh, wow. Bummed says, I always work on creative stuff when trying to smoke less, full attention. That does not work for me. When I'm writing, I want to chain smoke. I don't even understand that. I'm exactly the opposite. Barky Malarkey says vinyl chloride causes cancer. Yeah, but look into the chemistry of it and what it changes into very, very rapidly on exposure to the atmosphere. That's the problem that I have. Talk to John D about it. Okay. Anyway. God, I'm way behind, man. I got to go through this faster. Sorry, people. What's in the cup? Apple juice is in the cup. Of course, apple juice is in the cup. Okay, I caught up with Amy Destro making fun of my jacket. All right. I think I'm so fucking morphing. Sorry, people. I'm almost there. Okay, that's about the pipe from the Geezer 30. All right. Angriff is asking a question about morph and English and stuff. I cannot be bothered to address such trivialities. Yeehaw is trying to make a case for drum brakes, or pointing out someone who does make a case for drum brakes. I don't know, man. When I had a 1971 R75/5, and it had the little license plate up on the front fender and everything. It was very fucking cool. And I remember a whole bunch of times trying to brake with front and back drum brakes, and I was not impressed. So Uncle Tony's garage can say whatever he fucking wants about drum brakes. I know the difference. I haven't had twin disc brakes up front on some bikes versus a fucking single drum brake. No, thank you. All right, I think I'm caught up here. Okay, now I know. All right, yes. Not sure is getting into details about capitalism and corporate stuff, which I'm not qualified. Ask one. You should ask Radlib about stuff like that, because I'm just not into the economics. Light Brigade says I was just joking about the M word. No offense intended. I was just joking too, mostly. People say morph too much, I will fucking block you. Dawn Browning, Field Marshal says, Semigog, what's your opinion regarding Scott Adams? He's a fucking boomer, man. I mean, it's amusing to watch him do that, but it was still so gutless. Like, have even more guts, just go ahead and have actual guts. Go the rest of the distance, Oh, Zedez is in the house. Hello, Miss Lady. Thank you for being here, as always. Zedez. Happy peep. Angie Auger says, I'm 62, always marked my own drum. I like all of this change. It keeps life interesting. You are one of the flexible ones, Angie Auger. Go in peace. Good on you. All right. Richard, I'm looking for another one that says that semigog. Remember, people, I have to go look over here in order to find questions that you have asked, and it doesn't give me that nice big orange flag on the question like it does over on the other side. Nudge Unit says, how does it decide what top chat is? I don't know. It's just fucking bullshit YouTube algorithms. The Duelists was all right. Fraser says the Duelist was really good and historically accurate. It was all right. Light Brigade says, Semigog, what book do you have that should be in every man's library? Okay, so when you say every man's library, you're really saying what book should be in the possession of every man who has a library. Very few people have libraries. Nevertheless, that's still a very, very broad thing. But you're talking about a man, which is not a woman and not a boy. And I would probably say Montaigne's essays. You know, I mean, if you're Christian, I suppose the obvious answer is the Bible. But if not, I would say Montaigne's essays. Basic says, Semigog, respect. Good to see you're doing well. We'll be watching stream from start. Lots of talks about Moldova probably being invaded by Ukraine and U.S. troops being sent to Taiwan. It's getting hot. Yeah, I saw the stuff about Moldova. We'll see, man. I tweeted about that too. There was immediately, as you've probably seen, a counter insinuation. And where it came from, I don't know. The one about Ukraine probably attacking Moldova, I believe, was discussed by Russians, and then Ukrainians discussed how Russians were going to create a provocation that would draw Belarus into the war. So to me, it seems like a tit for tat. We'll see if somebody just decides, fuck it, it doesn't matter, I'll go for it. But I think everybody's saying, you know, careful, if you want to play Brinksman, this could get fucked up. Yeah. We'll see. As for U.S. troops being sent to Taiwan, I don't know yet. I don't know. My buddy Tim used to say that he always said Taiwan's a joke. In any case, the ones will be fucked most by Taiwan. I mean, yes, there's the sort of first island chain aspect, but it's Japan that's really going to get screwed by that, because as I didn't know this until the last couple of years, but the Japanese basically they did enormous investments and built out Taiwan. It used to be a part of their empire, and all the stuff they talk about, you know, chip manufacturing coming out of Taiwan, the majority of that is heavily Japanese backed. And as I recall, the Japanese recently built a high-speed rail system there for them too. So if Taiwan goes down, it's really going to be the Japanese who take it in the neck, other than that strategic aspect of the first island chain. But as China continues to get more and more of a blue water navy, that becomes less and less of an issue. So we'll see. All right. A guy from V says, Herodotus or Thucydides? It's a trap. Get it? Okay. Yeah, Zed Des. I had to look everywhere to find kerosene. You can't find fucking kerosene anymore. What the fuck, man? God damn it, this last bit of orange is just getting in the way of my last bit of apple juice. Okay. How much time? I'm in 1:45. I'll go for 2 hours, 2.5, something like that. Let's see how it goes. But I have I have one last cigarette I can have, so I'm going to go roll it. Hang tight. I'm not even going to turn anything off. You'll hear my little cigarette machine in the distance. I will be right back. La 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 la, Avone dave agin, avone dave asinde, avone dave agin, avone dave asinde, avone dave agin, gandavalve casse. Tra la 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 la, gandavalve casse. Te candua neves, gandavalve casse. Tra la la la. Okay, all right. Well, I'm done. It's Breton. Hour. Okay. Maybe. What is an... Oh, yeah. I don't need headphones. There's no one's talking and no one's voice that I'm supposed to hear. Patrol your domain. Marcher Lord of the Shrubland. Sorry, ladies and gents. I'm just catching up here. You guys are having... You know what? Actually, ladies and gentlemen, congratulations to you. Do you realize... I mean, I'm always very, very thankful that Zed Dez is here when people get out of line. But you know what? This is actually a well-behaved fucking chat, man. There are very few mouth-breathing fucking nutbags in here, man, which is always very fucking nice to see. Oh, Zed Dez, that's sweet. I love you too. That's sweet. That's very kind of you. All right. Morpheogog. This is my finger. Red rum. This is right over the fucking block button. 99 Iron Duke in the house. Hello, sir. Good to see you. Or I think it's some shit like, don't you Brits do something like that instead of like that? I can't remember. I just remember, is it in, what is it? Is that in Kubrick's, is it A Clockwork Orange where they have the Brit guy marching around and stomping on the floor? Yes, sir! Yes, sir! Yes, sir! And they just stomp on everything. When you were in the military, did you guys just like stomp on concrete all the time and go, yes, sir? Sorry. Out of control. I think the British military back in the day was probably pretty cool. These days, I don't know, probably not so much. Check out 99 Iron Duke's channel. He's down in Antipodes as well, and he streams with my buddy Chris Gard as well. Okay, hey, did I catch up? I'm to the end. No questions? Oh, there's one from Fraser. You guys better come up with some questions because I got this much apple juice left. I don't know. There's some in there. And I have one cigarette left. So don't leave me hanging. Fraser says, you said on Telegram that your library has expanded since your video tour of it. Any chance we'll get an updated version of that video? Oh, man. Well, I did a thing. I think I did a thing on Twitter where I shared a bunch of photographs of my library. Yeah, I mean, basically there's 1, 2, 3, 4 shelves of all the same size. Each one of there are 4 bookcases, each one of which has 6 shelves. The first one is 2 shelves of Chinese and Japanese, 2 shelves of Indian, 2 shelves of Muslim. Next bookcase, the whole thing from top to bottom is Christian. Next bookcase, the whole thing from top to bottom is classics, Loeb editions, and all that kind of stuff. But down at the bottom, there is a bit of folklore, Celtic, Norse myths and legends, all kinds of odds and ends of European folklore. Then the next one from top to bottom is the Middle Ages through to the Renaissance. Then there's another one that's, then there's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these, each of which has 6 shelves. Politics, history, metaphysics, magic, folklore, tarot, astrology, magic, hermeticism, philosophy, philosophy, two of philosophy, semiotics, linguistics, semantics, all that kind of shit. Typography, typesetting, printing. I can't see behind my Turkish cushions. Then the last one is psychology, instincts, emotions, ethology, science. And then over here, there's a big cabinet full of dictionaries and art books. And then over here, there's still about 2 pallets full of books that haven't been unloaded. So there's your tour, ladies and gentlemen. There is your tour. The Royal Marines do not stomp. So how does that work? Like the I guess is there a British Army? So the British Army stomps and the Royal Marines don't, or they just don't stomp? How does that work? Like some stomp and some don't stomp? Did they say to you, like, if you're in the Royal Marines and you accidentally stomp, they're like, we are not fucking British Army. You do not stomp. Like, how does that work? Like one group stomps, one does not? I must know. This is actually interesting to me. I do want to know. Inquiring minds want to know. Don't all of you want to know? All right. Listen to Noah Solomon. You're a real fucking amateur if you need a machine to roll your own smoke. I can roll a cigarette walking down the street in a hurricane. I can roll a cigarette too, my friend. I can roll a cigarette too. The thing is that these are very handy, neat, and quick. And it works out just fine because I buy my tobacco in bulk. And this tobacco, my friend, is much more like what you see inside a cigarette if you were to break it open. It's not like, the kind of shag that you would see with Old Holborn or Drum or Three Castles, right? Though sadly, Three Castles is gone. They market garbage like Golden Virginia as though it's truly Virginia tobacco, whereas Three Castles really was. This type of tobacco is a real nuisance to roll well in papers. All right. Fuck. All right. You going to do me like that? Watch this. Watch this. This show is not over, ladies and gentlemen. Even with this shitty tobacco, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you. I'm bringing some tobacco over here. And do I have rolling papers just for emergencies? I think I do. You never know when the power is going to go out. And if the power does go out, you need rolling papers. So now you're going to give me a hard time about how long it takes. But that, my friend, is because this tobacco is not perfectly suited for rolling with papers. You're all thinking, I can roll a cigarette going down the street in a fucking thunderstorm with fucking Kalki throwing lightning bolts from his chariot. Well, guess what, my friend? I, too, can roll a cigarette. It's just that with this tobacco, it's a pain in my ass that does not want to obey. Because you want to get that perfect little trumpet shape. Look at me. It's been probably 2 years since I've rolled a cigarette by hand. That's all right. That's all right. I will not embarrass myself on a live stream. There we go. See, it's just a problem to get it squeezed down to the right shape. And then you just tuck. And use a machine. You have to use a machine. You have to use a machine. Why do you have to use a machine? There you go, my friend. There you go. And this is with crap tobacco. And no scissors to properly trim it. You see? It's not bad for fast, right? I can roll a cigarette still. Don't you trust that Noah Solomon? He's deeply subversive. Now the problem is I have another cigarette rolled when I'm only supposed to smoke one more. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, what other... Oh, man, he's just endlessly giving me a hard time. No, I'm not smoking good Danish or Dutch rolling tobacco. I'm smoking what is sold in the U.S. It's cigarette tobacco, but it's sold as quote-unquote pipe tobacco so that it does not get hit by the taxes, which means I can buy... Buy a pound. This is a pound of tobacco, right? Nice, big, fresh, heavy bag, and it's very fresh. It's just that cut, which isn't good for hand rolling. And that's, this is $15 for 1 pound of tobacco. And it's fresh, and it's much better than store-bought tobacco. However, it's not like, you know, it's not like getting some nice shag cut Peter Stokeby's blend or something, right? And mind you, if I'd been rolling like drum or something, you wouldn't have this like, you know, squeaked out shape. You'd have a perfect expanding trumpet shape. It'd be perfect. Perfect. All right, let's see if 99 Iron Duke answered the question about different portions of the military stomping. I must know. Not sure, says Semigog, you lived in Turkey. I hope you made it to Egypt. No, you must have missed the earlier part of the discussion. I don't, I'm not interested in Africa. Okay, Marines, Royal Navy. Sorry, I should have known that. Of course they are. Army stomps. Guards stomp. Okay. Oh, I see. They don't stomp because they're on a warship, and a bunch of people down below would be trying to sleep and be like, fuck you. I love that. Really should someday do a stream of all former military from different branches of service in Britain. That would be an entertaining stream. But I mean, it has to be old dudes. It has to be like hardcore old dudes like 99 Iron Duke. I want no young people. Everybody's got to be at least 50. I don't want any fucking young people. By the way, I hate young people. I hate all young people. I want to hang out with old people now. Fuck you, frisky young people. You're fucking oiled up joints, you cocksuckers. All right. I'm on my third whiskey. Don Browning said, did someone say shag? All right. Hey, Vulpes knows 3 castles. Based. That was good. And when you open the tin, it smelled like golden raisins. It was fucking awesome. Good Virginia tobacco. And it always made me angry. You could only buy it imported from Britain. Even when you could get it. I wanted the best Virginia blonde. And I had to fucking have it. I'm from the US. I'm from the fucking South. And I had to have it imported from Britain. Fucking Brits. Anyway, it was good. I'm glad someone else remembers it. All right. This did not stay lit. Yeah, Amsterdam shag and drum. Drum is a shit tobacco, man. If you want to like smoke, you know, cut up stems, it's all right. But Basic says, Semigog, you say you've been working out. Highly recommend prison workouts for indoor and maybe get a pull-up dip bar. Funny you should say that. Do you, Basic, see This is what this light is handy for. Where else can you see this, ladies and gentlemen? Do you see that, friends? You see that? That is a pull-up bar, and I can hang upside down in it. And when I hang from it, my feet don't touch the ground. That, friends, is my pull-up bar. And I will tell you my secret for dips. I recommend this for everyone. Never buy a dip set. Buy a fucking walker. Many of them can fold, though I prefer the ones that don't fold and the ones without wheels because I want it to be solid underneath me when I'm doing dips. But you can get up in this thing and do all your funky stuff, right? And it's light as a feather. With the folding ones, you can fold them up and put them in a closet. And you know what? You get them at secondhand stores for nothing. Don't ever. And also, most of the dip bars that you buy, they're too wide. You'll get on bars and they'll be out here like this, and you go down to dip and you can't do it. You need them closer to your hips. This, friends, is the answer. You asked, like I said, where else can you get this kind of quality entertainment, people? So yeah, I'm with you, basic. Donnie Browning says, Old Holborn. I used to buy Old Holborn. I don't even know if it's still around anymore, but it wasn't bad. That was, Old Holborn was quality rolling tobacco, certainly compared to drum. All right, not sure says I can roll one-handed driving a manual transmission at the same time. I believe it. Some people say that, and you know what? I think it's true. And I probably met one or two guys who really could roll with one hand, but most of the people who said they could were just fucking lying. Or yeah, they can roll it, and yeah, you can smoke it, but it looks like a major bris accident by the time you're done with it, right? Okay. Oh, wait. I was just on 99 Iron Duke talking about the Turks. It was the Turks during the Crimean War that introduced the British and French to cigarette smoking rather than pipes and cigars. You know, about that period of history, this is why Richard Burton, James Redhouse, these motherfuckers is why I will never take my eye off a fucking Brit. They are a formidable bunch of bitches. They are hard fucking core, or they were back in the day. When you get your hands, even in Turkey today, right? I got a bunch of dictionaries that the Turks have come up with for their language, right? But the first proper dictionary, I mean proper by Western standards dictionary, you know, they had the Divan Lugata Turk and stuff. But Redhouse, James Redhouse, during the Crimean War, the period up to that, he went and put together the Redhouse dictionary. This is the first one, you know, the old one. This one has the old, sorry, you can't see it, it's too high contrast. This has the old Arabic letters of Ottoman. This is the proper first Redhouse. So James W. Redhouse. And this is the updated one that uses the Romanized, the Romanization. It's got the more modern Turkish alphabet. This guy, James Redhouse, man, I had to go and translate a Circassian book that was written in Ottoman in the period between the 1870s and 1890s. And Redhouse was my boy. I had to look to him with these intervening centuries to make sense. And that motherfucker, man, you'll only know it if you've been chasing down one word and you've had to follow it around, and it's like a Persian word, or it's a Turkish variant of a Persian word, or it's a Turkish Ottoman word that was pulled from Arabic and came in. And you look, and I've got 4 or 5 more Turkish dictionaries, big ass expensive ones that I hauled home from Istanbul, and Redhouse is the motherfucker. Redhouse is the motherfucker. The Brits, once upon a time, like the Burtons, like these other guys from, you know, like Richard Burton, the original Richard Burton, not the recent actor, Gypsy Eyes or whatever they fucking call him, the one who got the spear through the face in Africa, the one who snuck into Mecca in disguise, or people like Redhouse, they were fucking badass. badass, formidable men, man, and great scholars. But mm, I don't know. I don't know what happened to y'all. Probably the same thing that fucking happened to us. Anyway. Ooh, Angie Auger says, my uncle, who is 86, has rolled his own since he started smoking when he was 14. There's hope for me. There's hope for me. I might just make it. I might just make it for a while. Fraser says, whoa, $15 is how much I pay for 2 ounces of my tobacco. Well, if you're in the US, what you have to go do is figure out the local stores that sell those bags of pipe tobacco that thereby avoid the taxation. And there are different rolling systems. Like there's a Tops machine that rolls, and I'm not talking about those old ones that have the weird piece of fabricy plastic where you stuff it in and stick the paper down. I'm talking about like a proper one with the Tops machine. See, the one I have is electrically powered. So if the power goes out, I have to roll by hand. I don't care that much. I can do that, but I'm eventually going to get the Tops machine. You stick the little tube in and you just go whoop, and it slides the tobacco in and works fairly well for a non electrical unit. Okay. The enemy could hear you stomping with their high-tech hydrophones. This is why Guy from V is always welcome on my channel. Vulpus Persona, absolutely right, my friend. Absolutely right. Rager says, what about young ladies? Well, gentlemen must always make exceptions. 99 Iron Duke says Furious is supposed to be contacting you regarding a British Empire gay stream. I wonder what side of that you're going to be on, 99 Iron Duke. We shall see. Vulpus Persona used to get 3 castles as well. Excellent. Noah Solomon says Drum in the U.S. is now Republic Tobacco, and it sucks because the lawyer scared Douwe Egbert, the original tobacco producer, away. I used to buy it when it was Douwe Egbert's fucking Drum. I've been smoking Drum shit. If Amy Destro is still in here, she used to complain about people in the city where I met her stinking of fucking Drum tobacco in the summertime because they'd sweat it out, and that was like around 1990. I mean, we've been smoking Drum since it was very Dutch still, and it still had crappy chunks of stem in it. Now, fewer crappy chunks of stem, but still. No, it is not a sex swing. No, it isn't. And is that Mr. Neil? Is that who that JN is? All right. Fuck, true. Fucking scumbag Zoomers. Scumbag fucking Gestapo Zoomers. All right, don't be making fun of walkers. They work. Wow. Dr. Britton says his grandfather smoked Old Holborn back in the 70s. I was smoking it in the 90s, and you could still get it. And you know what? It didn't have chunks of stem and shit in it. All right. True, man. Absolutely true. He was a fucking badass, man. Plus, he was like, he went native with the ladies in India. And he was like fucking, he was seeking out the secrets of the Nag Brahmins. See, I have the best comment section. Here I was expecting to hear a story about how she could tie a fucking cherry stem into a knot with her tongue. But instead, she's rolling a cigarette. Oh, nice. All right. Başıbozuk. Burton was in charge of the Turkish Başıbozuks during the Crimean War. Başıbozuk. Başı means broken. Başı means head. Bozuk means broken. It means cracked heads, broken heads, crazy people. Başıbozuk. That's what that means in Turkish. And yes, as 99 Iron Duke says, Richard Francis Burton. Jack Burton. That's right. Big Trouble in Little China. Chop Chop. I don't even know what Chop Chop is. That sounds... Rolling cigarettes is an old punk rock tradition born of poverty and tax avoidance in the Lower East Side. Yeah, can you imagine back when it was relatively cheap to roll cigarettes? I mean, that's bugler days, frankly. And you know what? Bugler these days, by comparison to a bunch of the garbage that's going around, Bugler's not that bad. I grew up with a dad who rolled his own cigarettes and then boxed them at a table. He even built his own little unit for his rolling, and he'd do it each day when he wasn't fucking twisting one little lock of his hair as he sat at the table fucking rolling dice, because he'd figured out a way to fucking cast yarrow stalks or coins, but he did it with six-sided dice, and he'd just fucking roll I Ching trigrams and hexagrams all day long and fucking roll his cigarettes while I was in the other room watching Star Blazers. Not sure. It says Semigog. Oh, wait, I should take down that one from Guy from V. Where was I? Semigog, can you order Virginia gold? Well, it's Virginia Blonde. Can you order Virginia Seed? I've asked about growing tobacco, and Tim's now dead, but I've asked his wife about it too, and both of them answered, because they come from tobacco growing country, and they both lived out in the boonies, and they're like, growing tobacco is hard work. I was like, oh no, can't I just grow some and dry it, and chop? They're like, no, it's fucking hard work. So yeah, I suppose you could order the seed and try to figure out how to grow tobacco, but I was told by people I trust that it's not just like grow some tobacco for yourself. But if you guys know otherwise, let me know. Sitting around with friends in the 90s asking about what little manure balls in drum tobacco actually are. Who knows? Oh, Chop Chop is untaxed tobacco. There was tobacco that you used to be able to buy, like if you're on Galata Bridge going from the European side, Istiklal and the rest, and you would come down past Galata Tower and get to Galata Bridge to go over to, by Yeni Jami, the new mosque, which is from the 1700s, to get over to Istanbul proper, across the Golden Horn. There would be guys selling tobacco on a little unfolded blanket, a little heap. And it was actually, it wasn't like a Virginia Blonde, but it was a very light tobacco, and it was very good. And honestly, I don't think it's around anymore. Oh, I see. Chop Chop is illegal tobacco us Aussies source from our Vietnamese and Chinese communities. I bet it's strong. Is it any good? Well, now, wait a minute. Noah Solomon says, who knows what's in the pipe tobacco? But I mean, I've been smoking it. First off, who knows what the fuck's in it if it's from Marlboro? But second, I mean, look. I mean, here it is. I mean, does that look fucked up? I mean, there are a few stems here and there. Like this chunk of one right here, half of drum is this kind of shit. But it's not bad. And you can get different blends of it. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, in terms of pesticides and the rest, I mean, you're kind of fucked anyway. Here's the bad news. We're all going to fucking croak regardless. How's that for a happy note? Yeah. So, I have a little bit of whiskey left. I smoked my last cigarette. I'd say we have almost 15 minutes left, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to begin to make a fool out of myself, having just drunk and talked shit. But this is a proper Chillstream AMA. What else would you like to know, ladies and gentlemen? Let me see here. Nudge Unit says, from my investigations, curing tobacco in a way that is suitable for cigarettes is a much more involved process than any other tobacco cure. Glyphosate auto corrects to fluoridated on my phone. I have no idea what's going on here, people. Who are all you fucking people? Who are all you people? I don't know what's going on here. You've got 15 minutes to ask good questions. Dawn Browning says, there's an Aussie variety of tobacco plant. I grow Aussie native spinach, elderberry, and mint, but not the tobacco, as I hear it's too high maintenance. Or I too hear it's high maintenance. Yes. See, that's been corroborated by Donnie Browning. And I have seen from photographs that she's pretty serious about her growing. Her fucking witch finger herb woman stuff is pretty hardcore. She's she put the pressure on the man, and the man apparently delivered. She's got, as I recall, raised beds with wooden walkways between them. I mean, her shit's all fucking Cadillac. I mean, Cadillac. So I trust her. If she says it's high maintenance, I believe it. Imagine a tobacco field on fire. Tim used to talk about fucking burning huge fields of pot in Colombia when he worked with the DEA. People would go try to stand downwind of it. It's like that scene at the end of fucking Blade Runner where the Rutger Hauer character's like, what these eyes have seen. Tim's stories were the best. Yes, Iron Duke says, the thing about life is nobody gets out alive. That's quite right. Nudge Unit's talking about curing. Man, none of you guys have ever had a shitty cigarette unless you've had, and they're probably better now, but back in the day, there were two Turkish brands, Maltepe. And Mal in, languages derived from Indo-European, Mal is like malefic or whatever. It sounds like evil, right? But I think Mal in Turkish means just like commodity or product or stuff or possessions. Mal, it can be broad meanings in terms of slang. So Maltepe means like, I don't know, something like that. And tepe is hill. But yeah, Maltepe and Ikibin. Ikibin means 2000. Two brands, Maltepe and 2000s. Those were Turkish cigarettes that were hardcore. Faye Ale says a poem, perhaps. I might close with a poem. That's not a bad idea. If I can find one I haven't read already. I've read most of them. Buy my book. Buy my book of poems. I might pick one out at the end. Noah Solomon says, don't bash Bugler. It's got a very decent anisette accent. Yeah, and it's good. My dad used to fucking smoke a shitload of Bugler, especially when you could buy it in the canisters back in the day. Morophthalmos says, good morning from the old world. Good morning to you too, sir. What else do we have? Lab coats, tobacco plant with coca plants. Haven't heard about that. Sigma Sneed said, do you smoke American Spirit? If I have to, I'll buy them, but they're not. Everybody's like, oh, well, American Spirit's really good because that's the Native American brand. It's just more crap tobacco. And generally, whenever I've gotten them, they tend to be dried out badly. And for reasons I'm not entirely clear on, they're generally too tightly packed so they don't draw. Man Ray of Hope says, any thoughts on the earthquakes in Turkey? Well, yeah, I've asked my friends about it. They're fucked. Hundreds, well, tens of thousands certainly are dead. And I think at the end, they're probably going to be more than 100,000. I haven't looked recently. You don't know what it's like in Turkey. It's like everyone's terrified of the earthquakes because they know they're coming and they know all the buildings have been built wrong. So like you can't even, how in some places, like when people are afraid of something, you can tell a joke about it and everybody will laugh uncomfortably, but it'll kind of burst out. You tell an earthquake joke in Turkey, and I'm not talking about after this one, I just mean ever. And nobody laughs because everyone's terrified of it. They put too much sand in the fucking concrete. They use shit rebar. They use no rebar at all. They do things like, I had friends tell me about how they went down in the basement and the guy was bragging about how he'd cut all these support columns out of the basement of the building because he wanted more open space downstairs. I've talked about it in streams and discussions with people before. There are situations where they remove a building from a row of buildings where basically the entire row, like a row of brownstones in the U.S. Northeast, they all kind of support each other. And so what, happens in Turkey is someone will take the middle building out and they'll intend to rebuild the empty space that they've cleared, but they don't brace anything. So the buildings just fall down around them. You have to understand that in Turkey, buildings sometimes just fall down when nothing happens. So yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say about it, except it's just awful. My closest friends have not been affected by it. But everybody over there knows somebody who got screwed by it. And the Southeast was just savaged. I mean, absolutely savaged. I mean, you guys should have seen the photographs of like huge cracks in the earth. Yeah, it's fucked up, man. It's very fucked up. Happily, though, the people closest to me were not hit by it in the most direct way. So, yeah. Man, Ray of Hope says, I was watching on my phone at work. That's frightening. I'm not sure what that means. 99 Iron Duke says, I used to smoke French cigarettes when I was young and even more stupid. Yes, that's the Gaulois phase, where you're like, Gaulois. And yeah, they're pretty fucking shitty. All right. Yeah, dirt cheap cigarettes in South Africa circa 1985. Yeah. Noah Solomon mentions a rolling tobacco called Midnight Special that I had never heard of. I'm sure you could buy it at the best establishments with your Mad Dog and your Night Train. I actually drank Night Train as a teenager because there was one liquor store you could go to and they didn't, you could be standing on 3 phone books in order to be able to see over the counter and they'd sell it to you. So we used to buy Night Train and what was it? Richard's Wild Irish Rose. Ooh, hardcore, man. Bad. I mean, just shit rock cut wine. All right. Any other questions? Yeah, Turkish buildings are like my trees. Fraser says, Semigog, do you hunt? Not yet, my friend. I mean, other than taking out a couple squirrels. But I have, thanks to the kind soul and spirit of a dear friend, I have a CZ 455 Ultra Lux with a 28-inch barrel, bolt action 22. And I recently loaded that thing up with 22 shorts and with a 28-inch barrel. It just goes, ah, ah, just like a fucking air rifle. It's so fucking awesome. Yeah, and a buddy of mine who has hunted his whole life. He's the person who made me realize that Michigan rednecks are like spiritual brothers of Southern rednecks, because he's from Northern Michigan, and yeah, I'm hopefully going to be going deer hunting with him. I have one of these lever action Marlins, and I just picked up ammunition for it. My eyesight's not good enough, so I'm probably going to get a scope, like 4 power at most. Yeah, but it's 44 Magnum lever action. I'll probably hunt deer with that. And I'm definitely going to be taking out some squirrel with my CZ Ultralux. Man, that rifle is fucking. You're shooting it. You're like, ding. You barely even have to fucking touch the trigger. You just kind of go, and it pow goes. It's so smooth. Even with iron sights with my shitty eyes, You know, I can get a reasonable group with that thing. But I always carried pistols and practiced with pistols. So I'm not a long gun guy. I'm now doing dry fire practice constantly now in my house. I have a little set of targets I put up on the other wall, and I just constantly am trying to dry fire practice just with the iron sights for the moment, because I have to get used to offhand shooting with a rifle. And so yeah, I don't hunt, but I will soon. I will soon. And then I'm going to get myself a fucking chest freezer. And then I'm going to be fucking rocking and rolling. All right. We're coming up on the last few minutes here, ladies and gentlemen. What do we have here? Not sure, says Semigog. Grew Virginia gold and burley once. Wasn't bad, but don't grow burley if you don't want to. Don't do an if you don't do an involved cure, it's terrible. Well, that's good to know. Gitan. John Goris in the house. Check out fucking Ghost Tank. John Goris. I still have some excellent artwork from Goris. He's got a channel, you know. I think it's still under Ghost Tank, or it might be under John Goris's name. He can post here where to find it. But if you want to see fucking skeletons like blowing the guts out of everything and laughing, definitely check out his channel. Guy from V says Night Train was discontinued. Tear going down my eye. Yes, 99 Iron Duke. I'm not going to shoot a deer with a 22 unless I have to. I know all kinds of people who talk about having brought down deers with 22s. It's not ideal, and you better put it in the right place. And most hunters don't want to do it because they don't want to risk torturing the animal. But you can definitely take down a deer with a 22. You just don't want to get caught doing it. And I certainly wouldn't. Volpa says, I'm a Michigan redneck. Ha, got a 357 lever action Henry. Right. 22, you got to shoot him in the head. Not sure is a Michigan redneck too, right? My brothers, my redneck brothers from the north. Yes. Whenever my Michigan friend comes by, he just came over here recently and we all shot together, laughing our asses off. I got some steel targets and he brought his hog leg 44 and we were shooting it and stuff. He showed up in a, what is it? It's some Chevy Charger, Challenger. Well, I don't know. One of these. No, is it a Camaro? One of these shark fronted modern fucking sports cars designed to be like the old 70s one. And he just showed up and telling stories about running from the cops when he was a kid and, you know, shooting everything under the sun. Yeah. Michigan rednecks. I have a newfound respect for them. Nugent. Sorry. Okay. No, Seamus O'Blaine. I think they were probably just talking about shooting hedgehogs. Noah Solomon says, Semigog, what do you think of the YouTube channel Real Turkey from an ideological perspective? I've not seen that before, but since Noah Solomon is a friend, I'll look. Oh, like turkey. I was thinking of hunting. Real Turkey by Attila Yeşilada. Yeşilada means Green Island. Quake, Erdogan pushed Turkish economy to brink of. Well, obviously he's anti-Erdogan. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to watch this. How many? He's got 29,000 subscribers of his own. And he links to another channel of his with 400,000 subscribers. For him to have that many subscribers, he's got to be pretty. Where's the about? Real Turkey is a weekly news analysis program in English language covering Turkish politics, economy, finance, and whatever piques our interest that week. We are bipartisan, impartial as humans can be, and strive to reflect diverse views. Nothing that the hosts or guests may say in this program constitutes investment or financial advice. Our purpose is that get the real turkey out, not to influence investment decisions. This channel is copyrighted by Attila Yeşilada. I don't know. I gotta watch it. I'll leave it up though, so I'll check it out. Yeah, I don't know. All right, last questions. Yeah, so Noah Solomon, the short answer is that oh fuck, Furious is in here. I gotta at least let him in for a minute. I can't drink or smoke anymore. Furious Pertinax.
My friend, it's your
Oh
channel.
shit, I have to put these on.
You can
the people
oh, wow.
the people can hear you, but I cannot. Furious, how are you, sir?
Mein Gott in Himmel. Good. Oh, in the end, it's your channel, friend. Smoke and drink as much as you please. Remember, I'm a man, although you might say, am mostly abstemious. I also don't mind a good time. So, you know, there's occasions for drinking and smoking. So don't feel like you have to quit on my account.
No. I have to quit simply because I have my own limits, and also you're in your own Ash Wednesdays. Oh, it must be Thursday now for you.
No, I'm in the future, remember? So no, I'm past. No,
right.
actually, well, it's Friday where I am. So I
Oh,
yes,
sweet
I've just left gym. I have a piece of salmon in the oven, and I'm just biding my time. In meanwhile,
how do you feel about like espresso and grappa?
Excellent combination. In fact, the last one was in Italy in 2019. I stumbled into a wonderful gift shop run by a lovely pair of nonni, like, you know, an old Giuseppe and his wife, you know, Filomena. And I, with my broken Italian and their tiny smattering of English, they offered me this wonderful bottle of oak preserved or oak aged grappa, which I still use in coffee. I use like a tablespoon at a time, and it's wonderful in espresso.
Yes, I once memorized a fair amount of Italian from my first trip because I had to go to Florence, right? I mean, you have to go to Florence, right? So what do I remember? I remember, oh yeah, and I had a girlfriend. Oh, that's right, I had a girlfriend. Her mama was Anna Maria Alberghetti, who was famous for doing, like, she was in Beach Blanket Bingo and all these other 50s pop movies. Ooh, and she was actually quite a good singer. She was she did opera singing, and so her daughter could sing as well. Her mother was Italian. Her father was from Chile, and she tried to get me to start learning Italian. Yes, that was, oh my God, I was 20. So I could say, posso andarci a piedi, right? Can you go on foot? Quando parte il treno per Verona? All this shit that I memorized from this cassette tape driving around in the Bay Area rapid transit system in San Francisco is still in my mind. Yeah. Wow. I still remember a little bit of Italian. Si fosse fuoco. Yes. Arderai il mondo.
I do find the thing with Italian, though, is that I tend to suffer from that when I don't use it, sort of gets compartmentalized in the back of my head. And then I sort of need to be there for a couple of days before it starts to, like, you know, the wheels get greased and the wheels turn and it starts to make sense. And I mean, you know, because you're obviously American, you live in America, that the sort of the way that you think in English is actually different to Latin, because you got to think whether it's French or Italian or Spanish. Often, you know, words are said in different order. The structure is different of sentences, and so, you know, sometimes you just have to sort of get into that zone of thinking in a Latin way rather than in an anglicized way, or even a German way for that matter. You know, the language structure is different when you speak. So I suffer from that.
Verb, object, subject, verb, object, subject, object, verb. Turkish is crazy like that. Like, and it's all suffixes. So they'll be like, everything's a fucking subject. I'm sorry, a suffix. So they'll be like, arkadaş means friend. Arkadaşlar means friends. Arkadaşlarım means my friends. Arkadaşlarımla, still one word, means with my friends. And then so you could say arkadaşlarımla, which means with my friends. I am going. Gidiyorum. So arkadaşlarımla gidiyorum. 2 words, I am going with my friends. And yeah, they swap the order around and stuff. Yeah, you just have to let go of it. You can't. That's what I've learned about that. To the extent that I was able to speak Turkish, you have to stop translating and just feel it, just roll with it.
And because you're a man of languages, like you can't force it yet. It will come. It'll come eventually. Almost in some ways, the more you force it, you frustrate yourself. It's just it will click at some point.
Yeah, and I wish I were a man of languages. I mean, I have a tiny little bit of Italian and a tiny little bit of even less Arabic, frankly. Like I mainly remember the alphabet and a few words and how to count to 10, in Arabic. So I can only really speak one language other than English, and my Turkish is just shit now. So yeah. I wish.
I normally, if I go somewhere, like I'll do my Duolingo and I'll sort of build up some basic terminology. Like, for example, when I went to Brazil, even though I find Brazilian Portuguese really difficult, I sort of, by the time I got there, I sort of managed, enough sentences to order food or to ask for directions or that sort of thing. But I found Turkish extremely hard. For instance, I sort of think now the only 2 words I remember was "günaydın," which is, hello or good day, and you were saying something about like friends. What was it? Arkadaşım? Was it
Arkadaş? It's friends. Arkadaşım is my friend.
Yeah. So like when you'd go into a shop, teşekkürler arkadaşım, thank you, my friend. Like that's about all that cottoned on to me with Turkish. I actually found Turkish really difficult. I found reading it not so bad, but actually like speaking it and pronouncing it properly was really difficult. I think
reading it's fucking easy.
Yeah,
easy. There's only one. I think there's like one word that doesn't match. It's literally there's like 1 or 2 words in the whole language that isn't that aren't at this point 1 word or 2 words that isn't or aren't pronounced exactly as they're written because of the language reforms of Ataturk. They now have, I think maybe Hangul, with the Korean alphabet that was, I don't know, 15th century, 16th century. Can't remember when they came up with it, but maybe that one is better in terms of perfectly representing the sounds used in the language, maybe. But Turkish is just every single thing that you see is pronounced exactly as it's written. You just have to get the front and back vowels. So they have e, e, and e. Maybe I said that one of those twice, and then they have I can't remember them right, but the back vowels are a, o, and u.
Yeah.
So you have to have the u, which is like with the umlauts in German, and then you have to have the which is like boeuf in French. So if you have u and which you can get from French and German, the only other sound is u. And so like when people say Topkapı, it's not Topkapi. It's Topkapı. And I remember the first time I tried to learn that, my Turkish friend just sat across from me and I'd be like, Topkapı? And then he's like, Topkapı, Topkapı. But
I've probably committed that sin several times on streams because I've obviously referred to the Topkapi Palace, but that's obviously wrong. So thank you for telling me. Refrain from making that mistake.
Who cares? It's like I can't pronounce even Italian, right?
Yeah. But it's one of those things too that I think it's nice to call something what it is. I think it's a nice homage to what it is. I think things deserve that credence, as it were.
Yeah, and
I think it's awfully presumptive for people to sort of say, "Well, I'm not Turkish, so when I rock up to Istanbul, I'll call it Topkapi because I'm whatever." And I think that's just a bit shit. Like, I'm sorry,
right?
I think
but I mean,
should accord more respect to the place they find themselves in, if that makes sense.
But like, how do you do with French?
Yeah, but we all hate the French, so
no. But see, I don't. See, you Australians, you and Guard have that, and I think 99 hours.
No. We have it for different reasons. Guard's just Anglo. See, I'm like part French, and so it's the one part of me that it's the one part of myself I hate.
Okay, you just hate them. See, I don't know. I think they've gotten a bad rap, man. I think the French are fucking based. I mean, a bunch of them are like Ponzi princesses, right? Like Parisians and the rest, but like French from other places, and even some of the Parisians, like the most based shit. I I got off at the Charles de Gaulle airport, and I was in one of the new terminals. I've told this story before, but I was trying to find a place to smoke, and the terminal, these are the new terminals, which are probably old now, but for me, they were new. So they had these huge domed concrete ceilings with little segments, right? Repeated units down the whole thing. I don't know what you call the architectural style, but they were enormous. And they were only partially in use at that time because they were just opening up. And I was trying to find a place to smoke, and a bunch of the terminal was empty. And I came up to this French police officer, and who's keeping an eye on the area, and I'm like, look, is there a place to smoke? Is there anywhere that I can smoke in the in the airport? And he just looked at me and he said, it is absolutely forbidden everywhere, but I don't give a fuck. So I immediately just got on the moving sidewalk and smoked my way down to one end and put the cigarette back and rolled back the other way. I thought, meh.
I dare say that's kind of a Latin trait, all being said.
You can find that in Italy too.
Yeah, and that's where the French are this really odd mix of, because obviously, as we know, the Franks, as of the end of antiquity, the Franks were a Germanic tribe, but after having conquered Gaul, they sort of became Romanized, and they sort of intermingled with the Gallo-Roman people. And so the French are this really strange hybrid, and I find it even more, maybe amusing is the wrong word, because this led to some pretty horrendous historical consequences, but the French and the Germans kind of have this really strange historical sort of animus, that sort of pertains to the 30 Years War and the Holy Roman period, and the Prussians and Bismarck and everything, and obviously the World Wars. There's a lot of antagonism between us and Germany, but yet they're sort of like a brother people. Like the French are kind of like a bit of a bastard Germanic offshoot that just became Latinized. It's a really, France is quite peculiar in that sense.
Yeah, I've talked to French friends, and I was like, man, do you think you're more Med or more Northwest European? And I was thinking to myself that you could sort of like just kind of draw a line through the country, because I used to have a girlfriend from Lille, and she was like 5'10" and like strawberry blonde and freckles and gray eyes and broad cheekbones and very pale. So I was thinking to myself,
so she was Cimbrian, in other words.
Something, man. I thought half fucking Neanderthal, but lovely though, lovely skin like porcelain. Where you couldn't, you're looking for pores on these champagne glass breasts, and they just look like smooth porcelain. I was like, but no, I've asked many French about it, and they're like, no, we're not Meds. They actually see them. They have Med in them, certainly, and I'm sure you can find it in like Marseille or the Camargue or something. But I think they think of themselves, and probably not without justification, as more being Northwestern European. I'm revising my view of them recently. Like they see themselves as being more kind of Northwest, more Western, more Northern, certainly, than like an Italian.
I think it's a matter of gradient, though. In some regard, it's like kind of that sort of, North-South German dynamic of, Bavarians probably consider themselves closer to Austrians than they would someone from Hamburg, for instance, because of that. Well, in some regards, obviously share religion, being Catholics, but also just by geography, Bavaria is topographically more similar to Austria than what it is to, say, Hamburg or the Uckermark or the
or Hanover or Bremen. Yeah,
exactly. Hesse, that sort of Westphalen, and so you have that that proximity and that sort of shared culture that sort of is ensconced or hemmed in by geography to some extent, or shared as a result of proximity. And again, I know people joke about the whole, North Italians are European and South Mediterraneans, South Italians are not, or they're African, or whatever the joke is. And but it is a bit like that. I think it's true that as you travel north, Italy becomes more German, and if you travel south, there's more Greek and to some degree Arabic tones. But the fundamental point about Italy is that as you travel to the center, it becomes more Latin, whether you travel north or south. And the same can be said for France. I think France has this gradient of, if you look at, say, Provence or Lyonnaise or Toulouse, the southern portion of France, there is inherently more of that Med aspect to it. And as you travel more northwards and to some degree more eastwards, it inherently changes a little bit. I think that's just natural. And you'll find out across many countries that they're of a sort of similar.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I used to date a chick from Cornwall, and I'm trying to like compare that woman in my mind's eye to like Morgoth.
Oh
right?
dear.
Totally fucking different vibe. Like
Yeah.
when I hear Morgoth's accent and then I hear Border Reaver, I'm like, that kind of makes sense, right?
Hmm.
Also the seafaring thing. Yeah, I don't know enough actually about what that, Northumbria kind of genetics really is. I guess there's
Hmm.
probably lots of Dane in there and lots of older
Well,
English.
I have heard people say, and I mean, I'm inclined to believe it, that essentially the southern part of Scotland is actually kind of more Northern English than actual Scottish, but just the way that the lines were drawn and the borders ended up being between the two realms. Someone from Newcastle is actually sort of closer in culture, to someone from, say, trying to think what's in the south there, like Stirling or Perthshire or something.
Right, but when you hear
Than that person with someone from Inverness, for instance. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of strange how that does happen.
right, however, if you hear Morgoth, like maybe one or two sounds in his accent, one or two distinct sounds might be shared with Scots,
Yeah,
but his accent, it ain't a Scots accent,
exactly.
So it's like there's a different vibe. Like that
Mm.
speech pattern is different. Also, I've never seen Morgoth. Morgoth, his features are all hidden, but I'm guessing he's probably not a Scottish midget like Columba, right? Like that was another thing that kind of freaked me out, is that Scots are mostly small. Like everybody from
Yes.
Britain was like, yeah, they're all small. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
They're small? They shouldn't be small. They all like to pick up rocks,
Yeah,
So,
Braveheart gave us an incorrect impression that like most
exactly.
Scots were big and burly, sort of hard men of the
Or
north.
or fucking
Whereas in
Liam
fact they're
Neeson.
pale twinks,
Liam Neeson playing Rob Roy fucked us all
Yeah,
up.
yeah. Big
Yeah.
hulking kind of, yeah. But isn't Liam Neeson? He's of Irish background, isn't he?
Yeah,
If I'm not
yeah, he's
mistaken.
Irish.
Yeah,
But I've seen plenty of big Irish people. I mean, they
yeah,
get tall.
yeah,
So it's a
yeah.
different vibe. The Italian differences I don't understand as much. I have certainly seen that. I mean, it goes back to the whole thing of the Gauls.
Mm.
The North, I definitely have seen fair. I hung out for a bit in a town called Varese, which is fairly north. But the rest of the regions, I don't have a proper understanding of the differences in the types. I mean, other than that sort of north-south, fairer in the north, darker in the south, is there like a West Coast? Is there like an Adriatic versus, is there a East Coast versus West Coast kind of vibe?
Well, because Italy's a relatively narrow country in terms of the breadth of it, there's probably not so much distinction because obviously the geography of Italy is predominantly north-south. There are some distinctions, for instance, if you know what to look for, an Umbrian or an Abruzzese does have slightly different phenotypic features than someone from, say, Calabria or Napoli or something like that. But the interesting thing is that I've spent a fair bit of time over in Italy, and I've spent a bit of time in Sicily, thankfully. And it's amazing that with Sicily you'll see people even like in current year that you'll cast an eye over them and think, that person's kind of got Greek phronology, or that girl
Well,
kind of has
Magna
slightly
Graecia,
yeah, or that girl is slightly Arab eyes. Like I actually went out, I only dated her the once because I was traveling around Sicily and I had the one night, but we had dinner and she literally was Italian from like the neck down. And strangely enough had like a fully Greek face but with Arab eyes. It was the most odd kind of mixture, but it worked. Like, I don't know why. She was actually kind of stunning in her own way, but it was this phenotypical mishmash. And it just stuck with me forever. Because it was just so unique. But like you'd find it in a place like Sicily, and then in another I was we never actually went out per se, but there's like a Sicilian girl I was say I dated a couple of times here where I live in Australia, and yet she was blue-eyed and blonde, and you could have sworn that she was from Milan. Like, she literally looked like an almond. It's just totally pot luck. And then I've seen Italians from the north that have that that curly kind of what I call like a wop fro, like the curly hair and like a dark olive complexion with brown eyes, and she was from Lake Como. So it's like it is really a case of genetic
you never know
potluck in
what
that
you're going to
sense.
get. Yeah. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
so much of it, and it's been shuffled so many times back and forth, from top to bottom. And then, I mean, for fuck's sake, the historical reviews of medieval developments, that you did with Apostolic Majesty, where you have the Normans in the south and the I mean, it's just who knows what you're going to get.
And that's the thing too. Like, there's much made, and I think there are people in certain circles, maybe not our circle specifically, but people peripheral to us who do the whole lot. Well, Southern Italy, they're all just brown and African or whatever. And I mean, it's very much a trope. Like I remember, for anyone who's familiar with Stardust, this was actually before I was anyone on Twitter. I knew him on Discord and or was familiar with him on Discord, and we kind of did a bit of research on this just for shits and giggles. And he came across a genetic study where they say that less than 1 in 5 Sicilians have 25% or less, North African, Berber, or Arabic haplogroup markers. So it goes to show that they didn't leave a particularly big genetic imprint. More people in Sicily have Greek genetic ancestry than Arabic, if that makes sense. And
no, it does. Absolutely. That makes sense. I mean, it was Greek. I mean, it was Magna Graecia. I mean, it was Greece. It was considered a part of Greece for
two-thirds
millennium.
So 2/3 of continental Sicily. Good thing. So the first places that were colonized by the Greeks was Naxos, which is modern day. They call it, I think, Naxos Giardina or something like that. It's still there. Naxos, Catania, Taormina, Siracusa, Leontili were the first places that were settled. They were settled by Greeks in like the 7th century BC. And although the Arabs eventually ejected the Byzantines out of Sicily, I think at the tail ends of the 10th century, the tail ends of the 9th century, sort of into like the 1000s. End of the 900s. The Greeks had a physical presence on Sicily, if you sort of count the Roman period, because the Romans didn't really eject the Greeks out of Sicily; they just conquered the territory, right? Diodorus Siculus, Diodorus of Sicily, he was a Greek.
I mean, Archimedes was still up in there when they were running into all those problems.
Well, that's when the Romans arrived in Sicily, right?
Right.
But the Greeks had a continual presence on Sicily for 7 centuries, 3, 6, so 11 centuries prior to the Arabs even arriving. So and then the Byzantines held southern Italy up until Bella Mantica, which is 1071. So there's an enduring presence of the Greeks there, both as like an ethnic group and as like a governing administration. So they're bound to have more of that genetic imprint there. And then of course the conquest by the Normans, and then sort of the orientation of Sicily being towards Italy itself rather than being connected to Africa or being connected to Constantinople. And so there's bound to be a genetic consequence as a result of that. The point being is that I'm just sort of making the point that the genetic makeup of Sicily is rather more complex and not as straightforward as people make it out to be. I mean, I go along with the joke because it's good for a laugh, and I mean, for those who know me, I have a decent sense of humor, thankfully. But if you're looking at the question seriously, it's far more sort of multifaceted than people realize. It's not like
absolutely, man. I've seen guys
brown. It's just dumb,
I've seen guys from Cyprus who looked like some crazy ass fucking Paleolithic bloodline that I'd never seen elsewhere.
Yeah,
like literally, like some weird ass bloodline survived there that I've never seen. Not lots of people, but a few of them, more than one.
You see it amongst Basques, you see it amongst Sardinians, you see it amongst Cretians. There's some old like,
and probably
European genetics there.
Yep, and you got all kinds of wild shit going on in that period with the Carthaginians as well. I see my my buddy. I just must do one shout out, Marcus. Forgive me. I also lost a bit of ash here. I must clean up. I see my buddy Jolly Scholar in the house, and I'm smoking a cigarette I shouldn't, just because Noah Solomon earlier made me roll an unfiltered one, and it's just sitting here while I'm talking to you. So I mean, come on, So what the hell is happening in Australia now? What are the genetics like there? You got lots of Greeks now, right?
Well, there used to be a joke that Greece had the three largest cities in Greece were Athens, Thessaloniki, and Melbourne. Melbourne actually was the largest, and I think still remains the largest locality of Greeks outside of Greece. But I mean, I've for those who know, I had lived in Melbourne for a time. I have friends in Melbourne. I even have a good deal of family who live in Melbourne. And Melbourne is, like most other Australian capitals, rapidly changing demographically. You know, the floodgates of immigration have been open to Australia since the, you know, late 80s, early 90s. And it's just a bit like Britain. No matter who you vote for, the gates just seem to open wider and wider. And, you know, I remember there's a famous place in Melbourne called Carlton. Actually, there's even a football club named after them. They're quite a famous, they're one of the oldest clubs in our like Australian rules football. And the street that runs through Carlton is called Lygon Street. And I remember because I'm quite a motor racing fan, so I've been over to like the Grand Prix several times. I even lived in Melbourne when I was on for a time.
100% Italian.
And you know, when the Grand Prix, when the Formula One arrived in Melbourne, like Lygon Street was red. Like between the Greeks and Italians, it was where the wops were the day, because there's just cars and Ferraris and red and flags and shit everywhere. And when I went over there, so I didn't go for a few years, you know, to school and then work and this and that sort of other stuff. I didn't find myself in Melbourne for a while after I left Melbourne. I sort of went back again in like the mid 2010s. And already in Lygon Street, I was like, yeah, that Greek restaurant shut, that Italian cafe shut, that gelateria shut, and there's a curry house and there's a Thai restaurant, and you know, and then I went back again just before COVID, and it's like, oh, that place, you know, Alberto's closed. Oh, you know, Giannini's closed. You know, all the places I used to be familiar with, and it's probably like a third non-European now, and that demographic change has happened in like a decade and a half. It's been really rapid. And you can say the same about Sydney or Perth, or you know, it's
one quick question for you. Just I'm looking at the intimidating face of the fortress in your PFP. Is that Rhodes?
No, that is the Porta Gaia in on the Aurelian walls in Rome.
All right. You're giving a shout out to your peeps. I just thought Rhodes in terms of the fast, you know, the indomitable aspect of Rhodes for so long.
Yeah, well, it was the great fortress of the knights, wasn't it? Of Rhodes, of the Hospitallers, yeah. But no, I love the Aurelian walls, because I usually stay when I go visit Rome. I usually tend to sort of, whether it's Airbnb or some other arrangement, to stay not far from the American embassy. There's a place there called Piazza Barberini. And it's usually like a good spot in terms of there's still predominantly a shitload of Italians that live and work around there, and it's, you know, it's relatively clean and it's pretty safe, and it's close to 2 terminals as well. And then also, if you then want to go to say Trevi Fountain, or you want to go to the Spanish Steps or whatever, you're like a 5-6 minute walk away from there. And then also from Piazza Barberini, if you just want some peace and quiet, you're probably a 6 or 7 minute walk away from what they call the Villa Borghese, which was this really beautiful estate essentially built what was then on the outskirts of Rome. This is sort of like in the Renaissance period, a little bit after actually. And the Villa Borghese is beautiful. Like there's gardens, and it's acres and acres of space. And there's, you know, like an old what they call it, you know, where they keep birds and stuff, like an aviary and whatever. And you know, there's all these bird cages they used to keep, like the royal collection of, you know, peacocks and, you know, all kinds of birds that they would have, well, not captive, but, you know, like as a bit of a display sort of zoo sort of thing. And then you walk through Villa Borghese, like the grounds, and there's this beautiful big statue of Goethe, because Goethe famously spent time in Rome. And there's also a couple of wonderful Egyptian obelisks that were found from archaeological digs when they sort of dug the
Romans grabbed them. Right.
Well, the other Romans brought them from Egypt, and they were lost. You know, like after the fall of Rome,
they're the one at the Hippodrome, right? Yeah.
Well, actually, I was going to say, like the obelisk there that Theodosius brought to Constantinople, that is now at the. It was where Justinian put it in the Hippodrome, and although the Hippodrome is essentially gone in Constantinople, you can still see the outline of it in modern day Fethir, right? And there's that obelisk where I think the Janissaries used to climb up it, right, as like a test of strength or something, if memory serves me correct. And there's a couple of those in the Villa Borghese, not that same size, not as indomitable, but you know, there's these wonderful Egyptian, you know, obelisks with hieroglyphics on them in the grounds of the Villa Borghese. So that's why I stay in that part of Rome, because it is actually a really, really nice part of Rome that's close to everything, but it's still quintessentially Italian, but it's not full of tourists. So there's my travel tip for anyone, including you, Oliver. If you stay in Rome, stay near the Piazza Barberini.
Yes, I'll have to go back. To Italy. I actually need to learn Italian. It's kind of ridiculous that I don't know Italian. But the conjugation of the verbs is just, it's not simple. Spanish is much more straightforward.
No, indeed. The other thing too is a bit like you. Obviously, we've actually moved at kind of similar times, actually, and much the same thing. And so many of my books have been in boxes, and I've been unpacking and this sort of stuff. And I actually found my old class books, like from high school, my year 8 and year 9 lesson books. And now that I'm sort of a bit more settled, I'm thinking of actually going through them and trying to reteach myself, because I think I mean, it's like you're in a similar boat that unless you dedicate yourself to it, it's just you'd never
And you
expand
got
your
to live
language
there to
capacity,
really, or
Yeah.
start reading it. Even my Turkish, I'm not reading with,
Mm.
so it's just going to shit, and it wasn't great anyway.
Mm.
Are you? Answer only if you please. But I mean, are you Italian as well?
Certo. Yeah,
Uh,
I think this is a well-known fact, isn't it?
no. But I mean, in terms of having citizenship, also.
Oh, that's actually an interesting point where we thought that we weren't eligible because, see, after World War II, because obviously Australia and Italy were hostile powers to each other, Italian citizens who came to Australia were naturalized,
Had to give it up, right?
as my mother was. But because my father was literally in the bush and a child, and we kind of don't know his status, and apparently he hasn't been naturalized, so I may actually be eligible. So I'm
Well,
hoping
let
to
me let
actually
me
sort that out.
let me say you are eligible. Let me
Yes.
just put it this way: my grandfather, when he came, Dainelli, when he arrived, he was born to his parents who had come. They were first generation. He was born here in the U.S., but when he was born, his parents were not yet naturalized citizens. And Berlusconi opened all that up because I think at that time they figured, if we got to let a certain number of people become Italians, let's go ahead and let the ones who have Italian heritage background
Yeah.
become. So yeah, my mother applied, and that devolved upon everyone. Yeah.
Oh,
All she had to do,
interesting.
you have to get your apostilles, apostille or whatever. You get your proper stamps and your paperwork. But yeah, you
Yeah.
can become Italian.
Yeah, no, I'll have to check that. Actually, yes, the Second Horizon says, il sanguinis. Yeah, that's the rule of thumb for
The
Italians.
blood.
And of course, the liberals in the left in Italy want to change that, because how dare identity be shared by bloodlines? Like, what a preposterous idea. It is only something you can receive when you jump off a boat and get given a certificate from some government official. That determines what you are, not what courses through your veins.
Come
These
stumbling
fucking
through the
morons.
through the surf with your
Oh,
fucking African penis gourd
actually,
strapped around your balls. Yeah.
oh my, yeah, Eindrik's right. Base Italians, esatto, mio amico, esatto.
Esatto.
I have to share an anecdote, actually. It was but first time I went to Italy, I was only a boy. I think like grade 6 or 7. I was a boy, right? Literally, just before teenagehood, right? So I was sort of old enough to remember much of my trip, but not. You interpret the world differently as a child as you do an adult, right? Somewhat more through innocent eyes. And actually, I'll share 2 stories, because one's actually kind of funny. But the first one was in Pisa, right? And 2 things actually happened here. Because my, we travel as a family. I was with my parents and my siblings, and what one of my older sister at the time. Well, she's still my older sister, obviously, but my older sister was getting pizza with my mom, and this. You can imagine out of a movie, like the worst kind of Italian American comedy kind of mobster scene, right? There's like this greasy, ectomorphic, seedy Italian man trying to hit on like both of my mum and my sister. And my mum's married, and my sister wasn't yet 16. And my dad didn't take kindly to that at all, and told him to fucking jump, otherwise, he was going to get a fucking shellacking. And I think a few people who were around who had been in contact with this man were kind of happy that someone had given him, a bit of a verbal bollocking. But that's not nearly as impressive as although that aside, I actually did like Pisa. Pisa was a very nice place, and I had a wonderful interaction with we stayed at the hotel. Like there's like an old hotel there, and I remember, and then I was like only 12, right? I was this boy, and there was a barman there, and he would have been in his like 60s or 70s. So he was, as you are as a kid, you look at these people like grand old people who just have this font of knowledge. And I was talking to this old man. He's like, yeah, I served served Humphrey Bogart and Frank Sinatra, and Dean Martin, and everyone's been through here. Steve McQueen, and all the, you know, that old school Hollywood movie star generation, like, used to go through the hotel, and he goes, oh, you know, and when you're a kid, like, you're enamored. It's like, wow, like, this man's met all these movie stars, and, you know, he's, you know, and those kind of people have had the most astonishing conversations with what was a really special generation of artists in a sense, right? Like, movie stars now are garbage compared to what they were, right? And so, you know, I just remember this, talking to this man for hours, and of course, like in Italy at 12, you can actually go to a bar and order a drink. It's legal. I don't know if it still is now, but I know it used to be. And it was the first time I actually ordered like a red wine or a gin and tonic. So that was pretty funny. I did that when I was like 12 or 13. Nonetheless, the funniest story is in Venice. And we had a couple of Italian ladies in our tour bus crew, right? And they hung around with us because obviously my parents spoke Italian, and you know, my sisters are, you know, fluent. I was more like, I'm muddled with Italian rather than knowing it. But anyway, there was Venice is famous for its vendors. In fact, you come across vendors in everywhere, like Assisi, Padua, Naples, Rome. They're everywhere, right? But in Venice, it's made more complicated by the canals. Like, there's only so much room, like in the piazzas and the walkways. You know, it's a bit congested, particularly in tourist season, right? And there was this bald bastard who was trying to get his van, like his little push cart through, right, this crowd. And it was right at a place like where people like embark and disembark from gondolas. So it's like a little pier sort of thing. And literally we were crammed like sardines. And if someone had shuffled like half a foot, they'd fall in the water, right? And this as my dad calls him the il bastardo, the bastard, you know, or my mom calls him the bantam rooster. So this dickhead's trying to get his car, scusi, and he's actually like pushing his cart into these two Australian women, and they're like, you know, where am I going to go up? You know, am I going to jump? And he actually fucking laid a hand on one of them, like, didn't hit her, but like pulled on her arm and was like, you know, giving her a hard time. And my dad, being the gent that he was, fucking, and like big fucking farmer shovel hands, fucking grabbed him by the collar of his shirt, fucking turned like 90 fucking degrees, fucking holding him over the water. And I can't remember what he said to him in Italian, but kind of like along the lines of like, you fucking touch her and I'll fucking break your skull. Like, and my dad was like clenching his fist in the other hand. And I'd never seen my dad be aggressive in his life because that's not my dad's character at all. I was like, wow, based.
Yeah, and you're not joking about shovel hands, man.
Oh no, like,
from farmers to mechanics, there's a certain type of hand.
My dad was picking rocks at 6. Like, you can imagine how fucking strong he was. Like, my dad's now approaching old manhood. Like, you know, this was 30 years ago. He was rather younger and stronger back then. But I just remember him dangling like this fucking 5'6" fucking bald-headed, hot-headed merchant
Il
over the water. So it's like
right.
the virgin Venetian merchant versus like the fucking based and red-pilled fucking Latin farmer dangling him over the water.
Mucius.
Right. Yes. Yeah, so that was good fun.
Oh yes.
In the end, it's an AMA stream, so I hope we could end it on a funny anecdote, a little story time.
No, it's a good thing, man. I need to get back to Italy. I need to get back to Europe and check it out, man. They've got to, this bullshit with travel has got to end. It's all just fucking disgusting. I want to reconnect with my relatives. I was told a story. Well, there's a family story. I didn't hear it. My mother heard it, and she's like, you know, her father said to her, the grandfather, from whom she later qualified for the citizenship and everything, and he told her one time, he's like, yeah, you don't go back. If you go back to which one was it? It was near Lucca. I have two sides. My Italian family is one from the north of Tuscany, one from the south. No, I think it's Pitigliano.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, because there's quite a few cities along there, like La Spezia, Livorno. There's a few places. Lucca, Pisa, the sort of Massa. They're all in the same sort of location.
Right. Well, apparently there was some kind of, I heard about families killing each other over inheriting the dog that could smell truffles properly. So, I mean, you never know what the fuck is going to go down in rural parts of Italy in terms of who's pissed at who. But her father told her.
The Godfather wasn't wrong. Like, in Sicily, the women are more dangerous than shotguns. So.
Yeah, well, yeah. Women in general, are much more dangerous. But the story she heard was that if you ever go back there, don't tell them you're Dinelli or someone will kill you. So there were like all kinds of stories. I mean, the Italian stories you hear, like he was supposed to have inherited some land in Italy, but he pissed off his mother. there's one side's Bonaldi and the other is Baldoni. You know, I can't even fucking keep it straight. And he was leaving the house one day, and the story goes that his mother did the evil eye on him when he was leaving, walking down the walkway. Yeah, and yeah, and then they claimed his death later was directly related to that. But yeah, he told my mother, and she believed it too when she went back there to visit. She actually went to some, I remember she went to some photography place, and there was a little name tag, little piece of wood set up on the counter that had the name of the person working there, and it was Dinelli, and she had actually asked the guy for it, and he gave it to her because that's her last name. She didn't tell him it was her last name because she still remembered like the voice of her father saying, "Never let him know that you're Dinelli," you know. And yeah, she went and didn't tell a single person that she was actually from there, right? Strange. Yeah, they apparently they do, you know, all the shit about mobsters and honor and grudges, you know. Apparently they do hold grudges there, and they remember them.
Yeah, there's still a family in my mum's town where we're from, because I've said this before on streams that both my grandfathers served in the army in World War II, and the reason many Southerners, you might say, admired the Big Chin Man was because he crushed the mafia under a famous man by the name of Cesare Mori, who they call the Il Prefetto di Ferro, the Iron Prefect, and he crushed the mafia in Sicily. And many Sicilians, particularly people who are involved in, as my family were, you know, they were fruit and vegetable sellers, you know, and the fishermen, the people who had to pay, you know, the protection money, which was extortion money, right, were happy that the mafia was crushed. And so after the war, the mafia remembered the people who were happy to see them go. And obviously the mafia were re-empowered by the Americans after World War II. Heck, the sons of mafia dons were parachuted into Sicily during Operation Husky, for example. And we used to stir discontent behind the lines of the Germans in the Italian army in 1943. And my grandfather kept very quiet for a few years after the war because of it. And they're still descendants of the mafia. I mean, the mafia is pretty hemmed in Italy nowadays, but yeah, that surname.
The only thing more powerful than fascism to control them is the pause, right?
Yeah, essentially, yeah. But the thing is, the pause will enable them because they're useful to a point, whereas fascism just squashes them underfoot.
Right, and they also elevated themselves up, moved up to another level like they did in the United States. Everybody's like, it's gone, and you're like, no, they moved up. 99 Iron Duke is saying the USA used the mafia in World War II. Totally true. Well, I'll tell you this story, and then I will have to bug Boogie. I wish you'd been able to come in earlier. I know the time difference is bad, but I love having you on. I'm sorry.
Absolutely, man. I put some messages. I was like, dude, I just want to jump in, and I'm glad we managed to shoot the shit anyway. So. Because I have to say, it is wonderful. I don't know if you agree, but it's just wonderful to not actually have an agenda. Like you just talk. Like it's actually.
Oh yeah, that's why I'm
like having a buddy over with a glass of wine. It's beautiful. You know,
I'm riffing on the like Twitter Space thing that D does. You know, so this is perfect in that respect. Well, on the subject of the mafia being used by the USA in World War II, that same grandfather of mine, Tony, I still have
Antonio.
Now, yeah, well, they call him Tony, but his real name was Alberto. But because he's in the US, hey, Tony, you know,
yeah,
he's a Freemason. I still have his fucking fez that says Medina, you know. And when he died, my mother and brother went up to clear out his place, and his girlfriend had cleared out most of his firearms. So we only got like 6 or 7 rifles and pistols. Because most of them had been taken, but just still what she missed were 6 or 7 firearms. And I still have, where is it, man? I don't know where it is, but it's a 5-ball for billiards, and it's on a turned wooden handle. Ooh. And I'm sure it was an N-word knocker, right? It's even got a little wrist strap on it, and around the middle of it, written on a piece of paper, it says Dinelli, and then tape was wrapped over it. So he's got his 5-ball mace that says Dinelli on it, right? So it's labeled. Anyway, he drove a gambling bus for the mob. That we're pretty sure about. My mother still has the stuff from the bus he drove after he left doing that. He unscrewed the insignia from off the side of the bus. She now has it up on the wall in her kitchen. It's a big ass fucking bus insignia from the side of a 1950s bus. But he drove gambling buses for the mob. They basically would hop on the bus and everybody would gamble, but they were on the road, so the cops wouldn't catch them, right? And as I said, he's got all sorts of fucking pistols and all kinds of strangeness going on. My mother tried to track down what was going on with his military career because he was in the U.S. Army during World War II. But from everything we know, he never served in combat ever. And you know, it's strange. After my mom went up to get all his stuff, she, you know, opened up a drawer and it has all his military insignia. And I can't put the whole thing together because my mother's, she basically, between myself and my brother, she split all his military insignia up and just divided into two piles and handed half to me and half to him. Now, I don't talk to him anymore, so I can only see half of his military insignia. But from what the half I have, he has, you know, the just sort of straightforward medals that just, you know, campaign ribbons with a little medal that indicate that you were in the Army during World War II, that kind of shit, right? But then otherwise, all he's got is a mix of patches that I looked up and insignia, and I'm like, these are all from different like MOSs and different you know, different units. It doesn't make any sense. So I'm like, okay, did he just like collect other people's patches and keep them? Does that seem like a normal thing that somebody does after World War II? Is they just have a bunch of patches from a bunch of different people, you know, in a bunch of different units and a bunch of different specializations? That sounds kind of weird. My mother tried to get details from the military. They didn't have any really, other than a few bases that he was stationed at in the US. But the family lore, and this is from more than one relative that we asked about it, is that he went over because he was a native Italian speaker and he worked after World War II in doing interrogations of people after the United States took over. And so it's pretty much a certainty that he worked for the mob. And it's pretty much a certainty, you know, make what you will of the fact that you have a bunch of different people's insignia. I asked my buddy Tim about it before he died, and he said, well, you can't be sure, but it might have been one of those things. And it was much more common than people thought, that they just gave you the patch you needed to claim to be who you were supposed to be when you did some shit.
Yeah.
And I'm not thinking that he was some kind of special forces dude or anything like that. It wasn't that, but I'm pretty sure that he went over after World War II had wrapped, and he was in charge of processing people. You know, not in charge of, I'm sorry, but he participated in the interrogations associated with that.
It's entirely possible that he could have been, because I mean, the CIA did have a predecessor in the OSS, the Operation Strategic Services.
CIA didn't even exist then, right?
Correct. And it is possible, because you got to think the OSS they collaborated with the British, you know, with the Yugoslav
and modeled
part.
themselves on the British, yeah.
Correct. And the OSS, along with the British, very much active in Greece and in Yugoslavia, you know, with the Chetniks, and to some degree even cooperate with Tito to you know, expel the Axis forces there, the partisans, exactly. And it was the OSSS who were behind the mafia operation, or with Operation Husky and landing behind lions, and it would make sense that if your predecessor was, you know, uniformed and had that role either during or immediately after World War II, even if he wasn't particularly, if he was not strictly in the OSS, he could have been from a separate unit, like some kind of you know, like a, what do you call, like
a contractor. Yeah.
Well, not even that, but he could have even, say, been in, like, you know, signals or like some kind of military intelligence, and then just, you know, dispatched to OSS, being an ethnic Italian, and he could have actually sort of worked under them, and then, like you say, given the patches and the badges just to keep his story straight, or that if he had to fulfill different roles in that sort of subterfuge role, he could. That would make entirely plausible sense to me.
And it would make perfect sense that he would then come home and tell his daughter, don't ever say that you're a Dinelli if you go to this town, because there'd be a
Esatto.
lot of pissed off people left over.
There'll be a lot of middle-aged men with meat hooks and cleavers out the front of their houses wanting revenge.
Right. And when you throw in the fact that he certainly was a Freemason and was probably in the mafia, yeah, it all kind of knits
Adds up,
together, right? Right.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
He
listen,
was a piece of work.
Indeed. Well, I suppose it is late where you are, so best you go. But just a quick point, because I know he did mention this, and we will hopefully have to tee this up some point, because you and I are in that rare category where we actually prefer usage of GAAE, right? Iron Duke said that we should perhaps discuss it one day. So maybe, I don't know, maybe we can entertain that possibility.
Yeah, I'm for it. But
because,
the thing is, we need to get.
You and I are in the minority here, Semigog. Not many people like it, but I think you and I both agree it makes sense.
Yeah, I think the trick would be, well, if it's me and if it's you and it's 99 Iron Duke, and for everybody who doesn't understand, this is my ongoing back and forth with Academic Agent about whether or not there is continuity, more than superficial, I should say, because AA acknowledges superficial continuity. He has no problem with that. But it, you know, if there are other people who back the idea that there's more than superficial continuity rolling from the British Empire to this latter day American one, we should get a proper mix. I'm assuming that 99 Iron Duke is probably the one that says "fuck you, Yanks. It's all your fault." So that would be one on that side. There's no way AA is going to come on. Absolutely not. He's not going to acknowledge it, which, you know, is his prerogative. Love him, have no problems with him. But so that's you and I, which is one pair. So who would be paired up with 99 Iron Duke? And it would actually be better if we could get, I think I can have 6 on. So if we could get 3 that felt that it is the case, and 3 that felt it was not. I don't know if Apostolic Majesty ever comes back in. He's the fucking, you know, history mentat, and I'd love to have him on for it, just to be able to call bullshit on historical facts, you know, that are more recent. But who would come in with 9?
And in the, I was going to say, in the event that AM is unavailable, I think if we were to perhaps even, if we had like 2 and a middleman, I think someone who, unless I'm mistaken, I think someone who's got a foot in either camp would be Charlie. Charlemagne, I think gets the impression of that he kind of accepts a part of our argument, but he's also quite, he's definitely got a foot in the other camp. I get the impression Charlie's kind of 50-50. He could be an arbiter, maybe. I don't know, but
that could work. AA likes him better than me anyway, so that's a good thing, you know.
Iron Duke says that he's sorted, apparently. So,
but well, who's number 2 then, Iron Duke? Who would you bring in with you? And we need a mentat, man. We need somebody who's like fucking. We need somebody who's hardcore, filled with the lore and the knowledge.
D is moderator.
D is not. D would look up from his glass of gin and say, "Fuck off." Oh, Sonos Hamar. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Well. Okay. So then, Furious, you are the point man for this potential future discussion.
Indeed.
So you let me know, man.
Yeah. No. All good. In the end, this was, I suppose, your AMA stream. So thank you for having me on for at least a little bit of shooting the shit. Is always good fun. You're always a wonderful host, Semigog. So thank you. Always generous and chatty, and thank you to the chat for having me on and being involved. And I suppose, as per the commenter said, what was it? Si vivo. Does your mother know that you're not in bed yet? Oliver? ? So I best let you off the bed.
I'm going to turn into a pumpkin. Yeah, and you got some salmon that's probably going to burn. So
I went down and turned it off. So. But yes.
Perfect. Well, okay. Well, listen, thank you very much for coming on. It's always a pleasure to have you. And everybody should check out Furious. I don't know what he's doing these days besides random appearances, but I know that there's a huge body of his work, or the stuff he's participated in, over on Apostolic Majesty's channel. And
I'm a free agent for the moment.
Yes, and until he returns, and in the meantime, everybody should check out his channel. Apostolic Majesty is fucking
absolutely. AM is
proper.
an absolute ornament amongst our circles, and we're very lucky to have him.
Indeed, I certainly agree on that. Okay, well then, Furious, thank you very much for joining me,
Thank you, Oliver.
fratello mio,
Piacere, mio amico. Piacere.
yes, and the rest of you, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much for joining me for this AMA. As I said, I've got some projects and shit I need to take care of, so it's going to be another week to 2 weeks at most before I'm back again. But until then, thank you very much for being here with us. And until next time, I am Semiagog, and I am out.